Okay, good morning, everybody. We're going to pick up from the top of Daf Mem. In Miyat Hashem, we're going to try to get all the way till the end of Daf Mem Vav Amud Beis. So let's jump right into it's a brand new parak of parak Hayu Baitkin. Hayu Baitkin Oisam B'Sheva Chakiris. We're talking about the Eidim. We finished up last parak how we threatened them, but now we're going to the Bdika itself. So we're going to have 7 Chakiris, which is Be'ez Shavua, which Shemitah of the Yovel. Every Yovel is 7 Shemitas. Which Shemitah is it? Be'ez Shana in the Shemitah, Be'ez Chodesh, which month, and Bekama b'Chodesh. And how much in the month? Be'ez Yom, which day? And the 6th is Be'ez Shah, what time of the day? And Be'ez Malkum, which is all these are very crucial for Hazama, because if a person says that such a Maisa happened in Lakewood and Adam able to say happened in Muncie, he was in Muncie, Mana Yisem, it's going to be all for Hazama. However, Rabbi Yossi argues, Rabbi Yossi says, no, you do not need all these 7. Rather, there are 3 crucial questions, which are what? Rabbi Yossi Yom, Be'ez Yom. Which day was it? Be'ez Shah, which time of the day? And Be'ez Makim, which place it was. Those 3 is enough for Hazaman. You do not need Be'ez Makim. You do not need anything more than that. And then we ask the Eidim, we tell them, Makir Matamaisai, do you know the victim? What's the question? Rashi's Masber. Maybe it's a guy. If it's a guy, he's not B'chal, Chayiv Misa if he murdered him. So do you know if it was a Yid or a guy? His Sartim boy, did he give him Asra? We all know you have to have Asra. And the same thing would happen by Avodah Zarah, Hoivid Avodah Zarah. We asked the Eidim, Es mi avad? Do you know what type of Avodah Zarah he did? Uba me avad? How did he do the Avodah Zarah? There are multiple options to be Ovid Avodah Zarah. And the Mishnah continues and says, Kol armar b'bedikois, I raise him a shubach. The more you can do bdikas, the better it is. Like that, we get rid of all the people that are shakranim, they're not true Eidim. Maisa ubadak ben Zakkai. We're going to see who this ben Zakkai is. The Church of Yechanan ben Zakkai. But Oikse Ta'anim, that the Maisa was that a murder happened under a fig tree, and they asked Eidim how thin or thick were the stems of these figs. Ma bein chakiris libdikas. What's the difference between chakiris and bdikas? So chakiris, we know it's either 7 important questions, or according to Rabbi Yossi, 3 important questions. But what's the difference between bdikas? It sounds like we're learning that the last case of the Sefer of the Mishnah of Makir and Atam Isa and all those are bdikas. Lefi Shitas Rashi, other Rishonim arguing that. But Kipshuta, what's the difference between chakiris and bdikas? On that, the Mishnah says chakiris. Regarding chakiris, echad aimer eni yadeya. The second one of the Eidim says he does not know the answer to this question. Automatically a dusim betela, because we're going to see you can't do azama. And any edus that is no azama is not an edus. B'dikas, however, echad aimer eni yadeya does not know. Va'afilu shnayim aimrim. Even if both witnesses say, I don't know the answer to this question, the halacha is ein anu yaydin a dusim kayemas. Echad chakiris, the echad b'dikas, however, the Mishnah says it doesn't make a difference regarding a chasha if it's a chakira or a b'dika. Bizman shemachishin zeh idusam b'tela. If one witness says it was a black tree, the other one says it was a red tree, automatically the idusan is batal. The Mishnah continues. Echad aimer, they ask him what day of the month was it. So one Reuven says b'shnayim b'chodesh, happened the 2nd day of the month. Ve'echad aimer, and Shimon says when b'shleisha b'chodesh. Allah is a dusan kayemes. And we're going to explain why. Why? Which means to say it's very possible the last month, like even last week, Thursday, we know it was Rosh Chodesh, it was a month of Chavtes. It was only one day Rosh Chodesh, but it's very possible in a month that there would be a Yom Lamed. One of the Eidim did not know that, so he's off track by how much? By 1 day. However, when it's already a 2-day discrepancy, then a dusim betela, and we're going to explain why is it 1 day versus 2 days, what makes the difference. The question is, what time of the day? Guy says it was 9 o'clock. Guy says it was 10 o'clock. A dusim kayemas. However, again, if there's a discrepancy of 2 hours, one says 9, and one says 11, then we're going to say it's a bad edus. However, Rabbi Yehuda argues, says, we're going to see why, that it's more of a balbatish. How much would a person make a mistake? How long can you make a mistake in the day? In those days, we didn't have what we have today, clocks. It was more based on the sun. Therefore, he goes a little more makel. However, 5 and 7, a dusim betela. And the reason is, Sheva chamesh by the 5 o'clock, chama b'mizrach. The sun is in the east. Ubesheva chama b'mayriv, and it's in the west. So therefore, everyone agrees, such an error is probably not a true edus. The achakach. Okay, after all this happened, we bring in, so all this, even though it said the lashon of edim, lashon plural of ado is only 1 8, but now all those questions were to who? To 1 8. Now we're going to bring in the second 8 and see if he aligns with everything. So v'achakach Machnisen es hasheni, we bring in the second edu baitkin oisei. Im nimtzu dvarem mechuvanim, if it's taka, they're lying. Again, it doesn't have to be exactly 100%. Paischim b'schos, we open up the bezdin b'schos like we learned in the last parak. Amar echem min ha'edim. Yeshli lamed olav schos. We know the edim kivin sheiged shuvin echayz magid. We learned this also. Echem min talmidim. Yeshli lamed olav chayva, like we learned the edim was 3 rows of talmidim at 23 each. They say chayva mishatkin oisei. Amar echem min talmidim yeshli lamed olav schos. However, he says he has a schos. Ma'ilin oisei, we bring him up as a dayin u'mashivin oisei b'neiim. V'lo hayo yari misham kalayam kulay. He would not get removed. Im yesh mamish b'dvarav shoymin lay. Again, if he has some substance, he's making sense, we're going to have to listen to him. Even if he says that who is who, the victim himself, the person who's going to get executed, says, Yeshli le'lamed al atzmi schos, shoymin lay, u'bevachi yesh mamish b'dvarav, as long as, again, there's some mamashes to it. Ve'matzu loy schos, and again, if they find the schos patru, ve'im lav, they have to debate it overnight. And what do they do? All the Edom, they go in pairs, they go home, what do they do? They wouldn't eat too much. They don't drink, they have to have a very clear head. They discuss and debate, what should we do with this person? Should we kill him or not? And the following morning, we pull out the bezdin, all the dayanim, they come back. I'm staying with what I said. Hamelamed chayva could be melamed schos, like we learned you could retract in what you said. Again, during the deliberations, you cannot go back and change your mind. However, when it comes to the vote itself, when it comes to the minyan, then Avada, we said, he has no choice but to vote the right vote. Toba davar, shnei seifrim. What happens, Toba davar? Lamaisa, one of the diyanim made a mistake. So we remembered, we had these 2 seifrim. Shnei seifrim, diyanim askir naisa. They pull out the ledger, and they show him how he said something else. Imatzu lahay schos, if they find taka schos betruf. Im lav, oim del minyan, and they do the final tally, the final vote. Shnei masam is zaket. Remember, it's a bezdin 23. So 12 say he's zakai. Va'achad asam mechayvin, the halacha is zakai, because you need to have a majority of 2 in order to be mechayvin. Shnei masam mechayvin, you have 12 that are mechayv, va'achad asam zakai. Then you have 11 again, va'filu achad asam zakai, even if it's 11 saying zakai. Va'achad asam mechayv, so it's 11, and you're stuck with the 23rd guy says any yadeya. Va'achad any yadeya. Va'filu esrim v'shnayim zakai, even if you have 22. Oy mechayvin, va'achad any yadeya, the halacha is, if one of the dayanim says he doesn't know, Yasifu adayon. Vekama maisifin. How much do you bring on? How many agents do you bring on? Shnayim, achivim ve'echad. We learned this. They keep on bringing them up. Again, if it's a split decision, continue till they're 71. Shleishim v'shishim ezakin, v'shleisha v'chamisha mechayvin. If it's 36, 35, zakai. What is the halacha with shleishim v'shisha mechayvin? So you have a 36 saying chayiv, v'shleishim v'chamisha mezakin, so you don't have a majority of 2. Done in elu keneged elu. You got to sit and deliberate until when? And the Gemara is going to explain what's the point if eventually we're going to see that either way we're going to free him if they can't get the decision. The Gemara is going to say we don't want it to look like a bezdin that's very confused. Where do we know that you do 7 all these shaylas? You do 7 chakiras. Rabbi Yehuda Damakra says in the pasuk v'darashta, which is number. We're learning from this 1. V'chakarta, which is 2, v'shahalta heitiv, we're putting heitiv together, v'shahalta heitiv is 3. V'ayman, then we have another pasuk later on in Parak Yud Zayin. V'hugalacha, v'shamata is number, v'shamata v'darashta heitiv. Again, v'shamata v'darashta heitiv is another 2, so we're already up to 5. How do we know 7? V'ayman, the last one is v'darshu hashayftim heitiv. We're learning from Darshu and the Chaitim Heitev. Another 2. From here we see 7. So what are we talking about? We're talking about 3 Nekudas. One is the Erni Dachas, and then we have the Yachid Avodah V'Dezara, and then we have Eidim Zaymim. So to clarify, the first V'Darashta V'Chakarta is the Erni Dachas. And then V'Hugalachas Eidim Zaymim. And the third one, V'Darsha Shaiftim, the second one is by Yachid Avodah V'Dezara. And the third one, V'Darsha Shaiftim, is by Eidim Zaymim. Okay, so we have 7. Maybe each one, again, like we're saying, there's Irni Dachas, Eidim Zaymim, and Yachid, maybe each one should have, for example, Eidim Zaymim, Irni Dachas should only have 3 questions. Yachid Avodah Zarah and Eidim Zaymim should only have 2. One Daf Mem on the base, top of the Amud, Deim Kain, L'chtavinu Rachmana B'chada. Put all 7, we're coming to learn 7 questions, so put all 7 in one pasuk, you'll learn that from each other. Dr. Gemara, Kivin the Kulu Bahadi Adad Ksiva, Mahadi Alfi. The Kivin the Alfi Mahadi command the Kosa Bechada Dami. The Gemara answers, since all together we're learning out from each other, it's not a problem. Therefore, we put the 3 plus 2 plus 2 is 7 to tell us all 7 are going to have the same halachas that we do 7 chakirs. For the Gemara, it's not true. You can't compare Iri Nidachas, the Yochad V'Adav Zara, and Eidim Zaymim. Why not? So we're going to bring a siman palat. We're going to see the difference between Iri Nidachas and everything else in Saif and Asra. What's the chiluk? Iri Nidachas lahanech tarti loydam. You can't compare Iri Nidachas. Why? Shekema moin and palat. The hainu by Iri Nidachas, we know we burn all the possessions of the city. So I'll tell you over there, maybe over there, Dafka, you have the halacha of 3, Masha'enke, maybe even 7, Masha'enke, over the Zara, which is Mamayin on Palat, they save their money, we don't kill it. Maybe there'll be less questions. And the same thing with what? Avodah Zara. How could you compare Avodah Zara? Hanech tarti loydanya shekei b'saif. We know that halacha of Avodah Zara is the what? Irni dachas get saif. And Eidim Zaymim really depends what he's doing. However, we know there's also a concept you can get skila. And Eidim Zaymim, you can't compare the last case. Lahanech tarti loydanya shekei tzrichim asra. By Irni dachas and a yochad over the Zara needs asra. Mashenke we know by Zaymim kasha zamam lasas ba'achiv, just like by him, he didn't. What he's trying to do is not giving Asra. That's Pasha, there's no Asra, because he's trying to knock out these Eidim. So then we know that Eidim Zaym don't have Asra, so you can't compare all these cases to each other. Mara answers, you're right. However, we're learning that from what? The Heitiv, Yalfina, and Ma'adadi, and it's a Gzeira, Shava, Mufna. Since with the Rash, the Heitiv, all three have a similar word of what? Heitiv, to tell us to connect all three. The Gzeira, Shava, Mufna. Dila, Mufna, Ikla, Mifrach. If it were to be mukfna, mamash our question, like we're showing us that there is a difference between all three. So Zaktu Marla'ai, in a Chanami indeed, if Nuya Mufni, Medahavla Michtav, it could have just said, Vidarshu Vicharku, Vishani Karba Dibure Behetiv, comes to tell Heitesh, Mami no left Nuye. Zaktu Marva Kati Mufne Mitzad Echadu. You're still only mufna from one side. Why? Because Bishma Hanech Tarti by Eidim Zaymim Avodah Zara, we understand mufnu. Mishum Dahavla Michtav. It could have cleared no point to say native. Elierni Dachas. What do you want it to say? Mahavla Michtav. Haksiva Kulu. You have it clearly by Erni Dachas with the Rash of Chakar to Eitiv. Vishal to Eitiv. So what do you want it by the case of Erni Dachas? The Gemara answers, Hasam Nami Efnui Mufna. Why? But the Havila Michtav, it could have just said a double lashon. Dar Rosh Tidrosh, Eichakar Tachkar. Instead, what do we have? V'derashta, v'chkarta, v'shalta heitiv. A different lashon, v'shani kar b'diburi beitiv. Shma mina, to tell us lafnui, to learn out from each other, to make a gzer shava, to tell us all three of them, Irni Dachas of the Zara, which is a Yachid, and Eidim Zaymim have 7 chakirs. V'asu, now that we know this, v'asu nechnakin b'kavachayim in Iskalim. Because all those cases are a case of skila. And we're going to learn chenek as a kavachayim in Iskalim and a hayragim, which is a case of saif. V'asu nisrafin b'kavachayim in Iskalim. So Zaktik Mar Anichel Rabbana that held the army they hold skila chamura. Rab Shimon Damas Sreifa is chamura Michael Ameim. According to Rab Shimon, you have Sreifa. What are you going to tell me regarding Sreifa? It's much more chamer. Elam Rabbi Yehuda. You know what it says? Vihine is coming. He has extra psukim. Vihine emes v'nachayin. Vihine emes v'nachim, which is extra 4. Each emes and nachin is extra 1, which is 4. Hachatzri. So you have 11. Sheva l'sheva chakir. It's like our Mishnah for those 7 questions. Dal tlas l'gzer shava, which is 10. Going to add another 3. Pashlu chadi, you left off with 1 less. With 1, the 11th one, the what? Or Shimon l'asuyin nisrafin. The Rabbanon. What is Rabbanon? Doesn't need nisrafin. Milsid asba kavachayim tarch v'kos l'kra. We had this throughout Chas that in a chanami be'etzin kol lanaf. Kavachayim is still the pasuk. The Torah brings it out of the pasuk. Megadif bo Ravo, he wasn't happy with this. He says, Emelai suyish shmeina chakiris. Maybe, why are you coming to tell us it's sheva chakiris and it's rafin? Maybe it's shmeina chakiris. For the more shmeina chakiris miika, where is that 8th chakira? So tomorrow, why not? We could ask, in what time of the hour? Was it 6:30 in the morning? Was it 6:45 or 7 o'clock? So Betani Nami Hachi, how you both can also be shmeina chakiris. So Anicha lahabaya. I'll leave it there, Amir. So to give a little context, there's a machlekes really going on in Gemara Pesachim. Our Mishnah, we know. What's our Mishnah is very clear. The Tanakama holds more than 1 hour. It's Eidusin B'Teila. According to Rabbi Yehuda, how much do you have in our Mishnah? 2 hours. However, the Gemara Pesachim has a machlekes, Abaya ve'Rava. According to Abaya, it's also Lishna Kama, Lishna Basra over there. According to Abaya, the Lishna Kama, Rabbi Meir holds, a person knows exactly the time. Again, it's like today, it's very easy to understand that. We have clocks. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, until when? Until a half hour. That is the Lishna Kama in the Gemara Pesachim. And then you have the Lishna Basra in the Gemara Pesachim. The Rameh says a person makes a mistake, but only a little. It's like 6:13 to 6:10, a few minutes off. And Rabbi Yehuda holds you have up to an hour. That is Shitas Abai in the Gemara Pesachim. Then is Shitas Rava. According to Shitas Rava, Rameh says until 2 hours. And Yehuda holds you have a little less than 3 hours. So based on this understanding, there are mayor, the Amar Eina, Aliba da Anicha la Abaya. Like we're saying, there's a Lishna Kama, Lishna Basa, according to Abaya. Aliba, there are mayor. The Amar Ein Adam Toyev Eloi Klom, according to that Lishna Kam over there. V'lahach Lishna, even according to the Lishna Basra, in the Gemara Pesachim Nami, the Amar Adam Toyev Mashu Shapri. A person makes a little mistake. We understand the Gemara that you could ask, hey, what time was it? Was it 6:30 or 6 o'clock? El Abai, leave it there, Rabbi Yehuda. According to Rabbi Yehuda over there in that Gemara, the Amar Adam Toyev Chetzi Shah, and LeRava the Amar Tova in Shituva. B'chlal, people don't know the exact time to the second, to the minute. Michael Ameimar. Ella, you know what the question could be? Let's see, Bekama B'Yovel. A Yovel is what we know is 50 years, 49, 7 times 7. So you can ask, what Shemitah was it? Was it, in the Yovel itself? What Yovel was it? Dr. Mara, Hainu Be'ez Shavua. That type of question. What Shemitah in the Yovel? That's the next question in our Mishnah. El Asui Be'ez Yovel. Which year was it? Was it 49 years ago? Or was it 200 years ago? On that, V'idach, the Gemara is going to say to that, no, Kivin Amma Be'ez Shavua, like Be'ez Yovel. Rashi's Masber, a person doesn't give Eidos, forget about statute of limitations, but a person doesn't give Eidos about 70 years ago. It's very lo shchiach. Maybe about the Holocaust we find such a concept. It's very lo shchiach that a person is going to give an Eidos about that many years ago. Therefore, it's not one of that's not one of the 7 questions. Rabbi Yossi Omer. Tanya Amalam Rabbi Yossi L'Chachamim L'Devreicha Misha Bava Amar. According to Rabbi Yossi, we know there's only 3 basic questions. According to Tanakama, it's 7 questions. So Zok the Gemara. Amalam Rabbi Yossi L'Chachamim L'Devreicha. According to you, Misha Bava Amar Emesh Harga. Yesterday he killed him. You ask him all these questions. Amalam Beis Shavua, Beis Shana, which year, which month it was yesterday? Beis Chodesh, Bekama Chodesh. So Rabbanan tell back to Rabbi Yossi, I don't understand you. So why are you happy? You're telling me there's questions, your 3 basic questions? He just killed him. You're going to ask him, which day it was? He just said, he said it was right here. Even though in a Chanami there are plenty of cases that you don't need such questions. We learned from Shem and Elazar says we confuse the Eidim, we bring them to different rooms, we try to get them off their feet. Rabbi Yossi is going to tell you, Emesh Hargay Shchiach. It's very possible yesterday. Mamish Ba'is shot to say he killed him is very leishchiach. Achshav Hargay leishchiach b'roy v'duyas. Makir matem oisai. We ask him, do you recognize the victim? Is he a yid? Is he a goy, etc.? Tani Rabbana makir matem oisai. Is it Nachri Harag? Yisrael Harag? What type of? Who was the victim? His racing boy. We ask him, Kibel of Esra. Was he Makabel Esra? We're going to learn you need to be Makabel Esra. And Hitler Atzim Lemisi has to say, yes, I know I'm going to get executed for doing such a aver, and he goes, does it. Hamis B'Tachidei Dibur. We're going to also learn, maybe you could say, forgot. So it has to be B'Tachidei Dibur. And the same thing about Ovid Avodah Zarah, we ask, it's Mi Avad, Lepar Avad, Lemarkulas Avad. These are different types of Avodah Zarah. Ubameh Avad, how do you do it? There's B'Zivuach, which is Shchita, B'Kitur, B'Nisach, B'Shtachava, a bunch of different types of Avodah Zarah. So they ask him these questions. Omar Ula Minayin La Asra Min HaTorah. How do you know the person has to give Asra? Shenema says in the pasuk, the Ishay Sheikach Es HaChaysai. A person takes his sister Bas Aviv Oy Bas Imay. Ve'Ra is Sarvasa. Now Ra does not mean Tashmish, because otherwise it's the only case we have. You would have to say Ra. We know, but all the other cases Ra does not mean Tashmish. So what does Ra mean? Atabriya Tali Milsa. Just because you see him Zak Rashi Mishum the Ra, Isim is Chai, that doesn't make sense. Elachiyaru Taimashal Dover. They have to give him, they have to explain, this is Erva, and the Torah forbids this. And if you do this, you're going to get Misa Enechanam, it's by Karis. And we're going to see, since it's by Karis, we're going to give it something else. Imeina Inyan Lakaris, one the Daf Mem Aleph and Aleph. Tunu Inyan Lemalkus, give this Asra Lemalkus, which is Shaykh by his sister. The Bechizki Atana has a different Makar to tell us, we know Asra and Atayra. If a person shall plot Isharei Laharga Ba'arma. So the what? The Lashon of V'chiyazid sounds like right now, according to the Lashon Basar, according to the second Lashon in Rashi, it's mashma tomid, it's going on as we talk. We're talking about the Mekaishish Eitzim. We found him while he was gathering the wood. Again, you see that that's what was happening while we told him. It's a present, it's a Lashon of present. Rabbi Tana al Dvar, for the reason Asher Ina, like it says in the pasuk, Asher Inas Eishis Re'eyu al Iskei Dibur. We're playing with the words al Dvar for Davar for Dibur. Utricha. Why do they need so many Mekoires Fesra? Because one of the first case was Achaisai having in Chayvim Malkus in Chayvim Mises Loi. Because Rachmana to tell us ki yazid ishareyu even by misa. Because Rachmana b'chi yazid having a halamin saif. We know that saif which is killed of a skila. For example, by a rai skila chamura imelay. Mainly you need a boat tzricha. So for Gemara, but then why do I need two for skila? But tartim is going lomeli. So Dr. Gemara, l'rab shimon l'sun israfin. L'rabbana. Again, like we learned earlier, milsad asab kavachaymer tarach v'kasel akra. V'lichter Rachmana ben iskolin. Just say skila and learn everything else. V'lei sehanach v'ligum nirminei. Hachinami milsid hasab kavachaymer tarach v'kasel akra. Zok the heilige Gemara hitter atzmoy lemisa. Was he mekabel on himself? Minola Amaravi Tem Chizkiah Makra says in the pasuk Yumas Hameis until when Achi Ata Atzmoy lemisa until he's mekabel himself that he's going to get to misa. Amar Rav Chana Eidei Naira Murasa. So we know by Naira Murasa she's chayiv what? She gets skila. Typical Eishesish gets chenek. So the Eidim Shehuzmin now that they got busted they can say no ain't our ragam. We don't want we weren't here to kill her. We just wanted to make her. We just felt that she should be usher to the Baal, like we know. Kashem shasel l'boil, kach asher l'Baal. Frekdemar v'asher ba. You gave asra, and if there's asra, that means you're trying to kill her. My answer is the lay asher ba. V'lay asher ba. What's the tzad to get killed? Heichim miktala. My answer is b'isha chaver. We learned this once that if Eishes tamachacham believe Rabbi Yehuda, the Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Aimer chaver, which means that tamachacham ain't tzarch asra. Lifi shaloi nasa asra. The whole point of asra is elahachim and amazing. So frak the mar v'kiva and the inu le'miktali heichim miktala. Havele edus shiat choyala azima v'chal edus shiat yochal azima loshmeidus. We all know regarding edus has to be edus which has azama. So the Gemara achinami kama mitoich sheina rogan since they don't killed. Why not? She chaylan leimer leisra banabanu leisra bailabanu afi in an ereges. She's not going to get killed. Havele edus shiat choyala azima. Ella be'eshes chaver the kaimelon that we're going to say the mikla leave it there b'yesib Yehuda heichi mashkachas la. How could it be such a case? More answer is very good shmaka case. You know what the case is? Kishezinsa v'chazra v'zinsa when she's going for the second time around. Such a ma'isa when it's ready the second time around. We could still say we're not here to kill her. We just want it for the second person that did tashmish. Reuven was her husband. Reuven did tashmish. Okay, so that's why they did nus. But the second time around, the Gemara is trying to bring the second time around is a ride that what? That she's here to kill him. That the Edom are here to kill her. Gemara says no. We could say maybe if there was a different boil. Zok Gemara, no. You know why? You know why you can't say that? Shedzinsa meboil reishain inami shedzinsa mikrovesel. Any of those two cases, whether it was the boil rishon, which was either way usher or kroivim bechlal usher, elamai you're here to kill her. You're not here to make her usher. So Zok Gemara, Maishnanai Marasa Denakat. I feel in a tsunami. Well, I don't understand. Even in a suah gets killed. What's the chiluk Nai Marasa? Namian Ela Filu Haidila Yasva Tuse Yichayil and Laima Laisa Bailon Banu. The chiddush is even a Nair Marasa, which is what? They're not even married. They're married about she's an Eish Chaldavar. But what? They're not living together. They can still say I'm here. The Edom have a time to say I wanted them to be usher. I wanted this Isha to be usher for her future husband that they're going to live together. One says it was killed with what? With the sword. With an axe. It's not a good aid, this is a steer. And what happens? The guy says, you know what? The kalim were black. It was white. Then it's a good aid because it's not what? It's not to the core of what killed the person. So we look at it as a side point. So says in the pasuk, has to be nachon. To tell us what? Emes nachon adavar that what? Shia nachon. Echad with saif argo. Someone killed with a saif. The echad the someone killed with an axe argo. Oh, echad this is the kasha. Caleb Scheiner. Echad Caleb levainim. Ein zeh nachon. So you clearly hear a steer. Here we see that what? We see even Caleb is a problem. My answer is, you know what the Kalim were? It was taka crucial to the Eidos. For example, a guy kills somebody with a scarf. He takes a scarf, wraps it around the guy's neck, and yanks it, and that's how he killed him. Then about that makes a difference. What color was the scarf? The Hainu Saif, rerun, then it's mamish the exact same thing as an axe and a sword. Tashma, echad oime sandal of shcher. His sandals were black. So it's also a question. We see the makes no difference to the core function of how he got killed. It makes a difference. The way you killed him was by kicking him with the sandal. So in such a case, avada, we have to know what color it was. Tashma, let's bring a raya. Maisu badak ben zakeh be'uksatena, which was there was a murder going on under the fig tree, and he asked, how thick or thin? Who cares? The Maisa was just Shariga. What do you care about the side effects regarding the fig tree? You know we're talking about the Mises Kegoin Sha'akatz Ta'ina B'Shabbos. The Allah committal because he's a chayiv for what? From being Mechal Shabbos. V'atanya Amar Lo Tachas Ta'ina Hargay. So it was a murder. Wasn't nothing to do with Shabbos. You know how he killed? They killed him with the stems of the fig tree. Then you want to know how big it was that he poked him in his chest or whatever he poked him with. Zaktimara Tashma Amalan Ta'ina Zu Ikseh Dakin. Regarding this fig tree, where the stems were thin, and ta'anim, where Scheiner is ta'in levanis. Now, figs cannot kill. We can understand maybe a stem, if you know how to sharpen, especially prisoners, will figure this out in a heartbeat, how to take any little thing and use it as a murder weapon. El Amar Rav Yosef, you know what? Me Ben Zakkai, Loisef Inish. You can't bring a ride from Ben Zakkai, Sheben Zakkai. The Bdikas Chakiras, Mashaleh. Ben Zakkai was something else, Rabbi. What you're going to see is Rabbi Yehuda Ben Zakkai. There, he put them together. Therefore, there's no raya from Rabbi Yehuda Ben Zakkai to bring it to our case of Bdikas and Chakiras. So, my Ben Zakkai. Who's this Ben Zakkai? Rabbi Yehuda Ben Zakkai. Could this really be? Mi Hava Sanhedrin. Was he part of the Sanhedrin to kill Vatanya? We know Kosh Naiso Rabbi Yehuda Ben Zakkai was only what? He lived 120. May have asked him Shana. Arbaim Shana Asag Be Permakti, he was a businessman. Mem Shana Lamat, he learned. Arbaim Shana Limit. So it was only the last 40 years of his life that what he was able to be technically part of a Sanhedrin. Vitanya, we know, Arbaim Shana, Koidem Chorban Abayis, Golsa Sanhedrin. So there was no more Sanhedrin. V'yashal B'chanas. They stopped doing Dina Knossos. In fact, the more Dina Knossos Hakadaitach, that can be. Eloshaloi Danu Dina Nefashis. So we clearly see that they stopped doing capital punishment. Vitnan, Meshachara Beis HaMikdash, then his Rabbi Yehuda Ben Zakkai. So how could it be? If you look at the timeline, it's not possible that Rabbi Yehuda Ben Zakkai was a chelik of a bezdin that killed. So how do you understand the case of the Maisa with the Ta'anim? If you make the cheshbon, Rabbi Yehuda Ben Zakkai was what? After the Beis HaMikdash. Then by that time, he lived 120. Only the last 40 years of his life was he part of Sanhedrin. And those last 40 of his life was way past the timeline when there was no more capital punishment. Ella, you're going to have to say Ben Zakkai Da'ama. That it's not Rabbi Yehuda Ben Zakkai. The Isa Gadaitach Rabbi Yehuda Ben Zakkai. Karle Rebbe, would Rebbe really call him Ben Zakkai? Fraktik Marav Tanya Maisa Badak Rabbi Yehuda, underline that word Rabbi Yehuda Ben Zakkai. So what do you tell me he wasn't Rabbi Yehuda Ben Zakkai? We clearly see by the Maisa Uksitanim, which was a case of what? Capital punishment. Ella, you know how we can fix the timeline? Ella Talmid Hayoshiv Lifnei Rabbi Hava Enechanami. He was a student at the time. And they called him Rabbi Yehuda Ben Zakkai. So Kihave Lamad, while he's still learning, he was called Ben Zakkai Have. Karle Talmike Yoshev Lein Rabbi. Kihave Limid, when it's later on in his life, his last 40 years, I've called Rabbi Yehuda Ben Zakkai. So Ki Karle Ben Zakkai. You know why they call Ben Zakkai with the Maisai? Al Shem Dimi Kara. Vichi Karle Rabbi Yehuda Ben Zakkai. Al Shem the Hashtuf. And now in his later on years, they call him Rabbi Yehuda Ben Zakkai. Maisa ubadak v'chulei ma ben chakiris v'chulei. Maya filu shnayim. What's the case? Even if two eidim say that what? Even if two eidim say, you know the chiluk between dikas and chakiris, that even if two eidim say we don't know, it's a good eidus. Zaktimar pshita, it's a good eidus. Ki amar echad eni adei. Even if one says I don't know, eidusin kayemes. Ki amar betrain nami eidusin kayemes. Why should it make any difference? Zaktimar amar of sheisha is a reisha koi. It's going to the reisha of achikama. This is what he's saying. B'chakiras we know filu shnayim ma'imim yadanu echad eni adei. When it comes to chakiris, even if one says he doesn't know, eidusin betela. Who is this like? Keman. Rabbi Kiva, the Makish, Leishel, the Schneim. Rabbi Kiva says even if there's 100 Eidim, forget about 3, 2, even if there's multiple Eidim, they're all in one bubble. El Merava Vaidusin Kayemes Ktani says it is a good Eidus. How can you tell me it's Rabbi Kiva? El Merava, this is what you have to read it. Hachikama, Filu Bechakiros, even in the case of Chakiros, Shneim Ami Yadanu. The Echodaim says I don't need to do it. Eidusin Kayemes. That's not like that. Come on, they're like Rabbi Kiva, which makes sense. Rabbi Kiva would argue, Rabbi Kiva would say Makish, Leishel, Schneim, and it's Eidusin Betel. Zaktik Mara, fascinating Meiser of Kahana of Safra, Tanu, they were learning this Masechta. They were sitting and learning Sanhedrin Bei Rabbah. So Pagabahu Rambacham. Rambacham asked them a question as follows. Amalu, Mayam Risa Baba Sanhedrin Bei Rabbah. Well, tell me what's going on. What did you guys learn over there? Amalu, Mayam Rina Baba Sanhedrin Gedusa. What are you asking me about the Masechta? Umay Kashlach. It sounds like something's bothering you when you pull over to me. You learned Masechta Sanhedrin? Tell me about it. Amalei Maha. This is what was bothering me. Tiktani ma be chakiris lebdikas. What's the chiluk between chakiris and bdikas? Chakiris regarding chakiris echad oimeni adeya. We know edusin betela. However, bebdikas am echad eni adeva filu shnayim oimeni yoidem edusin kayemes. So he's bothered. He says, Mechti. Idi v'idi. Rav Macham is questioning to Rav Kahana of Safra. Idi v'idi daraisi. I don't understand. Ma'ishna chakiras and ma'ishna b'dikas. So Amalei, the answer of Kahana of Safra to Rav Macham, Amalei, hachi ashta b'chakiras, we know Amar echadeni yadei dusim b'teila, why davalei dushiat choyochal azima. However, regarding b'dikas, Amar echamim, any yadei, Eidus and Kayemes. So if it's Eidus and Kayemes, what does that mean? It's Eidus Shata Yochel Azimu. So it's really totally on one point. Is it an Eidus that you could be Mezim or not? That's what it's totally on. Amaluhu Ihachi Amrisaba Tuva Amrisaba. Yamalu Ihachi Amrisaba Tuva Amrisaba Baruch Hashem. You answer me very good. You're mechalik that has to do with the Eidus. So Amrilay, the Rav Kahana and Rav Safra tell him, Mitevusa demar amrina batuva. Since you came over, that you asked us, you really wanted the truth, and more than that, and you asked us ba'ifin anava, you asked us to really get a question. You weren't here to rip me up. However, mitevusa demar, have you been very, very tough with us and try to get us? Then la amrina b'balechada, we wouldn't have been able to b'chlal answer you whatsoever. We wouldn't have spoke to you. More than that, sounds like the Bechlal, they wouldn't have even answered it. Okay, Echad, Oime, V'chula, Ad Kama. We learned there's a chilik in the Chaydish. If a third in the month, a fourth in the month, a third to the fifth. So, Amar of Acha B'chanina, Amar Vasi, Amar Yechanan, and Rubish Chaydish. Till when can you say, I don't know? Is it the 14th or the 13th or the 12th or the 10th? But it sounds like you have a time limit where you're expected to know the Chaydish. Amar Rava Fanana Mitanina Echad Omer B'Shleisha VeEchad Omer Behei Edusim Betela V'Amai Nema Shezei Yodeu. You know why? V'Amai Nema Shezei Yodeu B'Shnei Burin V'Zei Yodeu B'Shnei Burin. Why don't we say that a person didn't realize 2 months has already passed? You know why? Elalam Mishum Devru B'Yada. Eventually you get to a point where you realize the Chaydish was either a Chaser or a Malay. Mar answers no. La'ilam Imalach Beruba Namaliyad. You have mamash till the end of the Chaydish, even until Chavtes. You could say you're making a mistake. However, b'shipura yada, it's totally on the shayfer. We could say b'chad shipura amar mina detay. Shipura layar mina detay. The Bach changes it that after you don't miss 2 tkiyah shayfers, every chaydish will blow the shayfer. So 1, okay, you overslept, but 2 is leishchiach, and therefore you're not nema. V'amar Rav Acha b'chanina Rav Asi Yechanan Akama v'Archan al Chaydish. Now it's coming up. Kiddush Chaydish. Ad shetismale b'kimasa, until what? Till the moon comes full like a cavity, till it's more or less full. V'kama, how much is that? Amar Rav Yaakov Rabbi Yehuda ad shiva, until the 7th of the month, which is basically what we know is a half a moon. Now Day Amri ad shisha, which is kamat, the full moon. I think we paskin like this, that we with the sefer Zman Kishavana is kamat till the moon's full. And one top of Membezam at Alpha, Rabbi Yechanan and Svirlu. They're both not arguing what Rabbi Yechanan said, which was it has to get filled up. One looks at it like a bow, like an arrow. If you picture an arrow with the bow, it's half with the string going on. Now feel like a sieve, which is basically a round pot, which is the moon, which is full. Why don't we say every chaydish right now? It's the beginning of the month. Let's say towards the end of the month when it starts diminishing. We don't say that. So he asked him back, okay, every month in the beginning say Baruch Atay V'Ameitiv. Towards the end of the month, when it comes like the 17th, 18th, when it starts diminishing, say Baruch Dayan Emes. My answer is keeping the Hainu Orche. That's what the moon is. We're going to see in a moment. That's the way it's supposed to be created. We don't make such a bracha. Why we learned this yesterday. Last week's parsha. We're learning from the Zeh to tell us the Shechina. Tana de Berishmoli Moli Loizachi Yisrael Lahakbil Pnei Avim Shemayim Kol Chaydish V'Chaydish Dayom. We say this in the Kiddush Levana. You have to say it standing. They would go on other people's shoulders because they were very old. So they would pick them up on other people's shoulders and they make Kiddush Levana. In the West, in this follows Baruch Mechadish Chadash. So I'm like, hi, Nashi Dida Nami Baruch. This bracha should be only for the Nashim. Why do the men have to say it? Because we know Rosh Chodesh is really a Yom Tov for the ladies. Rav Yehuda, rather the bracha has to be also for us. So what's in the bracha? Baruch v'chula, this is what we say every Chodesh. Asher b'ma'amar, with his words, Baruch Chakim, he created the Shemayim. Uberach, pay with his mouth, calls of all the legions. Chayk uzman, nasim lahem, they have a time, they have all the chayk, all the rusha, Scheiner tafkidim, they don't change what they're supposed to do. And sasim ismechem lasets ritzan kainim, they're happy to be over the reinu shalayim. Poyel emes, shepulasan emes, the mamish, the workers that are honest, levana amar, we know what the recording the moon, shetes chadesh, ateres, teferes, lamuse betem, sheina, seedless chadesh kamaisa, every month, lefar liyitzram, and they make the glorify the reinu shalayim, Hashem kavay mechusay, baruch ata Hashem, mechadesh chadash. Then we have a pasuk in Mishlei says as follows: Ki besach bulois, which means with wise counsel, tasa lecham mecham, you should go and do mecham. Amar Rav Acha b'Chanina, Rav Ashi b'Yechanan, b'mi'at ha'maitze mecham to shatayra, b'misha ish b'yad ha'chavilas onas bandel shemishna. Kari Rav Yosef and Ashay called himself v'rav tvuos, which means much of the produce is b'kayach hashar, comes from the kayach of the axe. It has to be, for example, 1 o'clock in the afternoon to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you can make a mistake. Imagine a guy says, even today, Neit Tzacham is around 7:15, 7:20. There's a big difference between 6 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock in the morning. Right? It's day and night, literally. The echadam elachanei tzacham may do some tail. Frak the mar pshita. It's isn't pasha. It's day and night. And the echadam mekoydem aneitz. The echadam beteichaneitz. There you would have a hami. You made a mistake. Frak the mar. Why would you make such a mistake? Hanami pshita. Mao the tema bigului kai. Seeing the glow that's coming out in the morning. Vizarui bahalma hu dechaza. Really, what you just seen is like the rays, the reflections, etc. Kamash malon that a person does not make such a mistake. V'achakach machnisen. We bring everybody in v'chulei. We know im yesh mamish b'dvarav. We're talking about this dayan who said something good. Im yesh mamish b'dvarav loy haya yari misham layla. He would stay over there. V'im ein mamish b'dvarav. And when Taka said nothing tachlis, ein yard kalayim kulay. Why? Kadesh alayt. So you read the light. So I'm abayi and echanam. You know I have to read it. Terguma im ein mamish b'dvarav. Then you put him up for one day. Matzulay schutz v'chulay. So we went through the concept, what he does, the Bezdin goes home with peers, they think about it, they don't drink wine. So why don't they drink wine? Yain my time aloi. Amar of Acha b'Chanina Makra, it says in the Pasuk Reiznim, which means rules, Sheikha should not drink anything that's intoxicated. Oiskin b'Razish Shalaylam, which is the secrets of the Veld. So to Ishtakri, you deal with the person's life, you don't drink any wine. Matzalei schutz v'chulu. Loi ro mai. So Amar Racha l'maisa, if they can't come to a decision, what do you do? What's the whole point of going through this whole procedure? You know why? You know what's going to happen if you get the split decision. It's not even split. It's just one majority. We want it to flip. What's going to happen is it looks very confusing. When everyone knows they thought about it for a while and eventually they got to the point they still can't make a decision, then what we say is, okay, you're potter, but it doesn't, a better name in Bezdin. Why do we have to come on way of 23? That what? We eventually get it to 71. Just stop over there and you have 23 and that's it. Amalei, Sabai tells her papa, Rabbi Yaisi, Kai Kavasach. Rabbi Yaisi Taka holds like you. The Tanya, Rabbi Yaisi Aimer, Keshain, Shein Maisifin al Bezin Shal Shivim, Ve'echa, Kachi Maisifin al Bezin Shal Asim, Shleisha, Div Rabbi Yaisi is the what? For 23 Vesulai. Tana Rabbanan. Oimrim bedinim emainois nizdakek hadin. Ve'einoim bedinim fashis nizdakek hadin. Nizdakin. Nizdakin is a lashon, old, right? So mine is dakin hadin. We're going to clarify what is taka this words of nizdakin. Lashon, old. What is exactly? Ile mikash. Someone will say nizdakin means it's very difficult. It's a very kashdina. So why in the world by dina, if anything, by dina nefashis, it makes sense. You have to mamish know what you're talking about in order to kill the person. So I'm Rav Huna b'Manayach Mishav the Rav Acha Rav Ika in Echanami Epoch. Rav Ashi Amano Loyal Loy Tepoch. You know what Nizdakin Adin means? Chacham Dinos Taka wisely decided. It wasn't like 1, 2, 3 decision. They came to the emes and then they passed it. Frak Mar Meisvei Galdo Shabidayanim Aymer Nizdakin Adin. The older Dayan says Taka the words Nizdakin Adin. See, I'm a Bishma Chacham Dino. Okay, it's a wise decision. Hainadam Agadol. The chief judge comes and says that. Eli Amrit Kashti, no, it's a difficult decision. He's embarrassing himself. Why would he talk like that? My answer is, and yes. It's not a problem. A guy gets up and says, I have XYZ weakness. But you have to get up and say, your weakness is XYZ. It's much more of a busha. That's why when he says it's a difficult din, and that's why he's saying it. He's saying it's a good din. A person is a Balgaivi should get up to the chief judge and say, yes, we know what we're doing. I came out to the most wonderful, wise decision. It says in the pasuk, Yahalecha, which is praise. When a person gets up, Hashevrach, Zar. Your mouth shouldn't talk like that. Rather, the Zar should give you chaverim, should give you your praises, not you. My answer is Shani Milsa, the Beidino da Godo Ramya. By Bezdin, who talks? The chief judge. And he says, I'm ish plainyat the Zakai, ish plainyat the Chayiv, Hadron Alach, Hayu Baitkin, Hadron Alach. Okay, we're going to the next parak, Membeis and Membeis. Nigmar Hadin, unfortunately, this person is going to get executed. What do we do? Might see in Isailis cycle, we take him out to get skila. Where was this scaffold? Where was this place that they would give him skila? So base skila hayachutz lebezdin was outside the bezdin and rachuk me bezdin, and it was far away. Shenamar, like it says in the pasuk. Haitze, we're going to go through. We're going to have the makalo. We're going to have multiple cases, the par and everything. Shchut dechutz. We're going to go through everything. Haitze is a makalo. The pasuk says you should remove the makalo. The makalo we all know got misa. Echad aimid pesach bezdin. One guy stands in Bezdin, Vasudarim biyadai, and he had like this type of flag in his hand. V'sos rachak mimenu kadisheireu. And then he had a horse following the person who's going to get executed. So picture this, we're sitting in the Shul over here in Bezdin. The guy's by the door holding a flag. The second someone of the Yanim says, you know what, I think I have a schos. He quickly raises the red flag, whatever color it was. And then the guy on the horse sees the flag. He goes running towards the people getting executed. Says, stop, wait a second. They raise the flag. Rashi says they wait over there. He doesn't come back. Other Rishonim say they immediately bring him back. So what happens? Echad aymin al pesach bezdin v'sudar miyad v'susrachak v'manu kadisharei, like they can see him. Ay mechad shlam al schos halay meinif. He waves the flag v'sudar. V'sus ratzum amidim afilu aymi yesh lamad al atzmi schos. Even if he himself says, you know what? I have actually an answer why XYZ what I did. Machzir and I said, "Filo arba b'chamish palm even 4 or 5 times." Ubelvad shish mamish b'dvarav. It has to be that there's tachlis to what he's saying. Otherwise, we stam. Don't keep him coming back. Zok the Gemara, basis skila chutz the bezdin have. Is this really true that it was outside bezdin v'sulayin? That's it. Tanya. Basis skila was where? Chutz l'shalosh machnes. It was outside. It was away from the 3 machnes. We have the ikar machne, then we have machne leviyah, which is the second machne, then we have machne Yisrael, and outside of that is gimel machnes. So Zok the Gemara. V'atanya basis skila chutz l'shalosh machnes. More answers in kedakamris. Yes, you're right. It's after gimel machnes. V'hadik tani hachi. You know why it says this? Nafkamina diina fik beidina. Let's say even for whatever reason the bezdin's outside already the gimel machnes. V'yatzu chutz l'shalosh machnes. Avdina basis skila chutz l'bezdin. You still must take the basis skila and put it even further. 2 reasons why. Kihechid the laim is chazi bezdin writes. It shouldn't look like bezdin's a bunch of murderers. Inami kihechid davelatzola. Like that, he got convicted at 6 o'clock. We're going to see later, which is yesterday's daf. The whole conviction was literally mamash a few minutes, the whole thing. But Lamaisa, we want a few minutes of that time in order to be able to save him. Okay, Minon immediately. Where do we know it's taka? Outside the machnes. The Tana Rabbanan says in the pasuk, "Hoitz is a makalim chutz lamachne chutz legimel machnes." Well, there we're learning gimel machnes. Atay mechutz legimel machnes. Oh, you know chutz machne achas. How do you know it's 3? Namar kam mechutz lamachne by the makal. V'namar beparim and israfim chutz lamachne. When they burnt the par, this whether it was a par Elam Davishal Tzibur, or the Par Koim Mashiach, the halacha was, they burnt the nevela, the carcass of the thing, they burnt it outside, no one was able to eat it. Mala Alon, we know it's Chutz L'Shalosh Machnas, Afkan, Chutz L'Shalosh Machnas. Frak Gemara, V'has Min Alon. How do you know that by what? The Par, Ha'elam, etc. was also Chutz? More answers. The Tanya Rabbanan, V'hitz is Kol HaPar, El Mechutz LaMachna. When it says you should move all the pars, mechutz l'machnes, chutz l'shalosh machnes. Atoy mechutz l'shalosh machnes. Oyenu l'chutz l'machne achas. How do you know? Again, 3 machnes. Kishu oyme, when it says el mechutz l'machne. Bepara eda, where you burn it, kashesar v'sparishan, shein tam alayma, sherikvar nemar v'sar v'isa kashesar v'sparishan. I already know that you burn it mechutz l'machne, so why is the Torah telling us? Litin loy machne shnia. Tell us you remove it. By the dashen already we know. Why do you have to tell us? We already know where the dashen you burnt out. It says in the pasuk, Al shefach hadashen v'sara. Yisarf. Litan loy machle shlishis to tell us 3 3 machnas. Okay, so we have very clear, very geschmack. We see 3 psukim to tell us that it's gimel machnas. A person can be over, pigel, shchutechot, sorry, shchutechot, malalon, chutz l'machnas. Even one machna, avkan chutz l'machnas. The Gemara answers, mistabra miparam and israfim havelei lemelaf. It's better to learn it out. You have an option. Either learn it out from the param and israfim or learn it out from the shchutechot. That's our 2 options. Why? Shekain, we're going to use these words as acronym. Haitze, which is 1. Acronym, which is basically 4 different points. Haitze, el mechutz l'machna, which is 2 from the word el, and machsher u'mechaper. So let's explain all these 4 why we want to connect from the par and not learn it from shutichutz. The first one is haitzah. Now we all know by the mekalel and the para, they're both getting removed outside the machnas to get killed. However, by shchutechutz, it's not like that. We know very clearly, if anything, the shchutechutz, you don't do it outside. If you did it outside, you get punished. That's number 1. And then if you look in the pasuk, by shchutechutz, both everywhere it says el mechutz hamachna except shchutechutz. So you have a choice to connect the 2. You bring the el mechutz hamachna from param and israfim to the mekal. The third thing is machshir. We're going to go sheet this Rashi. There are other options what exactly machshir means, but machshir means by the mekal. By skila, both the mekal and the param and israfim, you both need to do it outside. In order to be machshir, you do it outside. That's the point of doing. You tack up a pier over there. It's usher to do it outside. And the fourth one is mechaper. We know that what? By the mekalo, what's be mechaper is misa. And the same thing with the para. The para burning is a kapara. It's the opposite. That itself by doing outside, if anything, and forget about kapara, if anything, is mamash and aver. So you have these 4 things to learn it out from what? From parim, from mekal to parim, and not to shchutechutz. Zaktamar adarabi. You're starting to play that you have a bunch of things. Shchutechutz, I can also learn it. Havle melaf. I also have 4 things. Why? Shekain, which is adam, chayte, beneshama, and pigol. So what's it mean? Adam, chayte, neshama, pigol means this follows. By mechutz machna, we all know. By the mekal, the pasuk tells us that what? Both cases, by shchutechutz, it's the person. Right? Masha'en came by shchutechutz, and the mekal is both the person. Masha'en and the par, what are we discussing? We're talking about a carcass and a nevela to burn it over there. So you have a choice to compare it between an adam and a behema compared to the adam. So shchutechutz is the adam. That's number 1. Chayte, we all know the mekal did a chait and the shchutechutz did a chait. Masha'en came para, he didn't do it. The par didn't do a chait. The adam did a chait. The kain did a chait. And mekal and shchutechutz is what? We all know there's a yitzias neshama. Mashenk and the par was ready, dead. And the last one, that's what it means, beneshama, which means yitzias neshama. And pigul. By shchutechutz and the mekalo, we know that doing anything mechutz lamachna has nothing to do with pigul. Mashenk came mechutz lamachna, but par, you could do a pigul. Therefore, you have a choice to bring pigul. Where should I connect it to? We're going to connect it to dafka mekal and shchutechutz and not a par. And then the more answers lamaisa. The most similar is what? Machshir, difale. If you have a choice, enechanami. There's 4 on one side, 4 on the other. We rather go to the most similar, which is the machshir, like we explained, that you have to do it. It's part of preparing it is outside of the machshir. Rav Papa learned something else. Rav Papa is not going to learn Gzer Shav. The Gemara is going to question this. Who is he? He's only a Meir. Who's he to argue in a Tana that will make a Gzer Shav? Rav Papa, where was Moshe sitting? But Machna Levia. The Torah says, Haitzis HaMakal. He moved the Makal. That means El Mechutz LaMachna. Chutz l'machna levia, you're moving outside the machna levia. Ve'yitzias ha'makal. Then also regarding that it says in the pasuk, ve'yitzias ha'makal. Chutz l'machna. Where's that? Chutz l'machna Yisrael. Frak the Gemara, I'm evay la'asiyah, to tell us that Itaka did it, that they listened to the command. Gemara answers, "Asiyah b'adik we already have this mefresh in the pasuk. Guamim gimel amad aleph u'bnei Yisrael asu kashet tziva Hashem es Moshe. Elama'ata, rather you have to come from the different pasuk. Regarding the makal, we says we bring him outside mechutz l'machna. And we stone him. Vayirgamu oisai oven. My avdilay. What are you going to do with that pasuk? We learn 2 things out of this. Oisai, first of all, dafkehem, we're going to learn that clothing prolonged the death. We don't want to give tsar to a person. We're going to go through this extensively in a moment. And Evan, to tell us, we're going to see that even 1 rock, after we do the Maisa Skila, if he falls on his head, we throw 1 rock, etc. Why? Because I would have told you, he got away with it. You throw 1 rock, it doesn't kill him, he gets to go home. Then we throw a bunch of on him. Kasher Rachmana Avanim, we kill him. Vi Kasher Rachmana Avanim, have him in the Mikar, nice tarty. Maybe take 2 stones of Katrila. Kasher Rachmana Avan, that we start off with 1 big boulder. It's the easiest way to kill him. So Fraktik Mara, Vahai Taina Nemakamar. What's going on? Why is Rav Papa coming to say we have a very good shmak, we have a Tana that's coming and giving us a very good shmak Gzer Shava? Maybe to learn it from Shchuti Chutz, learn it from the Kalmi Power, but we have a Gzer Shava. What's Rav Papa coming to say? No Gzer Shava, I have my own opinion. Who is he to argue in the Tana? Gemara says no, Chas Shalom is not arguing. Ilu loy na'amakama. Rav Papa just saying, I'm not going to argue. I'm just saying the Tana could say, V'achkama. Ilu loy na'amakra. Hayis I'm Gzer Shava. Achshu shenamakra Gzer Shava loy tzarech. The Hainu, we have the Psukim. However, if there wouldn't be Psukim, this is what the Tana is saying. He has Gzer Shava, like we learned at the bottom of the base of the base. Rav Ashi Amar Moshe Chavi Yosef, where was he sitting? B'machna Leviyah. And the Torah says, means where? Chutz l'machna Leviyah. El mechutz l'machna, so Rav Ashi goes extreme a little. He says, Haitzi and mechutz, he breaks out the pasuk into 2. El mechutz l'machna, chutz l'machna Yisrael. V'yotzi samakalo, la'asiyah. Frak tomorrow, asiyah behedik sibu, like we saw on top of the Amar, b'nei Yisrael also kasher tziva semesh Moshe. On that, Rav Ashi is going to tell you, we're going to see you do smicha, v'chal l'tchiyah. According to you, Rav Ashi, that you're splitting up the pasuk into 2 drashas. What are you going to do with Parmenis Rafim? You're going to have to split it up. How are you going to learn it over there? My Darshbu, what is the drashas over there? More answers, Enechanami, it's Taka Shver, Kash. Echad, Oymed, V'chulei, Amr Avuna Pshitali, Echad, Evan Sheniskaba, the Echad, Eight Shenitlavai, whether it's the stone that's going to kill him. We're going to see the beam that he gets hanged on. The Echad Saif Shener, we kill him with the sword. The Echad Suda Shenechnekbai, Kula Mishal Tziba. The Tziba has to pay for it. Why? My time, we don't say, go to the store and buy yourself a gun that we're going to go shoot you. That makes no sense. By Rav Huna, however, we learned in the Mishnah, we have a flag and a horse to save him. Sus, Shemanifim, by the Suda Shemanifim, by this flag, with Sus Shiratz, Mamidan, then we have a Shailam, Shamiyu. Do we say, keeping that solid today, Mididehu? Wait, it's for your sake to save you, so you got to pay for it. We have a chiyuv to make sure to protect you at all costs as long as it's possible. Mididu, we have to pay for it. Visu. We know when a person gets killed, Mashkin Isaac Karchel Levina, because Shayim give him this grain of Levina with wine, Kadeshi Tatar of Daita, like a person, he shouldn't fight his death. Like that, it's going to prolong it. Like that, I guess he's very high. We give him some drugs. Today we would give him, and that's it, he's gone. He's happy to die. Shanamar, Tnu Sheikh Alayvid, you give, we're going to learn from this too, we should underline this word, Sheikh, which is something intoxicating to the person that's lost, V'yayin, that a bitter soul's a marina fish. V'tanya, and what happened was, there was the Nashim Yakarish B'Shalayim, Haymasnab, they would bring this wine, Umevias an Ison. However, who brings it? More answers Avadim Istabishal Tzibra, Kivin the Chsiv, Tnu, that we give it, Mididu from Bezdin. The guy gets up and says, I have a schos. Next thing you know, becomes mute. So Menapech Rav Sheshet the other. Rav Sheshet blows his hand like saying, this is all shtusim. You're not making sense. He says, I don't understand. Once you go in this mahalach, then what? Because the guy said he has something. Maybe there's someone on the other side of the world who also give you a teretz and say that he's free. We don't think like that. Mar says, oh, calm down, Rosh Hashanah. Awesome, like Amar. A guy gets up and says he has something smart to say. Come am I. So Tashmad, Rav Yosef Bechanina. Echum Tamidim She Zika v'meis right inside Kila Chai Ba'im Kaimai. Dafka Zika, if he taka said something. Zika and like Zika like. My answer is no, again. Zika pshitali. Amar tibayalach. Again, I know if a guy says Zika and the guy dies overnight, we use it as a good vote. We're back to the question. Mamaisi gets up, he says he has something smart to say, he sees his chus. Maybe the point is we wanted to bring another bezin. The point of bringing another bezin, what's the Shaila bezin? The Shaila bezin the is, maybe we should bring it to another bezin, like that's a new fresh set of minds, and there's a bigger chance that he will be acquitted. Afilu v'chule, we said even if the victim himself says I have his chus, we bring him back. Even the first and 2 times around. Vatanya, Pam Rishayna. We said it has to be that he has mamashas b'dvar in the Mishnah. Fact the Vatanya, Pam Rishayna v'shnia Bain. Sheyesh mamash b'dvar. Bain shein. Underline this word. Even if there's no mamash b'dvarav. Machzir naisay. Mikavelach. Only after the 3rd and on. Yim yesh mamash b'dvar machzir naisay. Ein mamash b'dvar. Ein machzir naisay. Samar Papa tergumua in echanami mi pam shnia ve'elach. Only from the 3rd time and on you have to have mamashas. So Minah Yadi, how do you know if a person has mamashas? We bring a pair of Rabbanan. Ikamamish with Varv. They first listen, they have to prove it. If Taka is something smart, any loy. V'lim salei mikara. And understand, why don't we bring these two pairs of Tamid Chachamim immediately? By the first two, no matter what, we come back. More answers, you know why? Agav de boy slay matzi amar kamayde islay. The first two times a person's so worried about getting executed, he can't think straight. He's Taka not going to say anything with mamashas, even though he be'etzim has something smart to say. Zok the Mishnah on the Banim and Gimel Amar Aleph Matzulay Schos. If we Taka find the Schos Patru, we get him. He goes home. V'im lab Yaitzel Yisakah is going to get the skila. V'chroz Yaitzel Lefanav. We give a proclamation. We say as follows: Ish Ploini ben Ploini Yaitzel Yisakah al Sha'avar Aveder Ploinis. Reuven ben Shimon is getting killed for doing such and such Avera. Ploini Edav and Shimon and Levi are Edim. Call me She'edelei Schos Yaviv Lam and Olav. And the reason why I mention Edim and everything is in order to bring out the higher the chances. If it's Azama, if it's not true, we'll be able to find Edim. Amar Abai v'tzarich l'meim. You have to say when. Behind playing is my complaining. Why? Again, to bring out the strength of higher the chances of in a scenario of Azama. V'chroz yaitzel lefanav. Correct. The Gemara lefanav in mikar lai. Only now, not before. It's very fascinating. The Gemara stops and we're missing chasit fus. If you go through the tziyanim, you go through barichas b'kapshutai. It's a question. Lefanav in mikar lai, and it's taka missing a lot of print in the Gemara. Zok the Gemara mem gemel amid base. We're going to go through a little gata. Someone who slaughters his highs, yitzar misfadal, and gives a vidim alav kasav kilo kvibda yala kadosh baruch hu. Bishnei elamim. Ha'elam is that? Va'elam abba. Tichsev, like it says, zeveach, someone who slaughters taida, is carbon taida, yichab danani. Rashi's masber, there's two nuns, one's va'elam is that, one's va'elam abba. Rama, Reb Shlomo Levi, Bizman Shemei Samekdash, Kayim Adam, Makriv Ayla, Schari Libiyadeh, Mincha, Schar Mincha Biyadeh. Avami, Shedai Teshvala, someone who's a low malav, a kasav kilo hikriv, Kol HaKabonis Kulan Shenem, like it says in the Pasuk, Zivche Lekim Ruach Nishbar is a broken spirit. V'loyel She'ein Tfilas in a message. Shenem, like it says in the Pasuk, Leiv Nishbar V'nitka, someone who's broken and crushed. Lekim Le'sivze, it's not despised by the Rebbeinu Shalom. Okay, we're going to continue the scenario of how we do skila. Hayarachik mi beis skila k'aser amas. He's around 10 amas away. Now we tell him do vida. We don't want to do vida mamish atat, like that his mind is already. First of all, we're going to give him something to drink. But b'chlal, it's too close, he's not going to be able to think straight. Go give it vida. Shekein derech kolam masin the people die misvada. Shkolam misvada yesh lo chelak kolam b'va. Shekein metzina ba'achan. We're going to discuss achan throughout the whole memdala, the mice of achan. Shamalei Yeshua. Yeshua tells him, B'ni, achan, my son. Simna kovel Hashem alekei yisrav atain l'tayda. We're going to see what happened, that he did a girl. And he says, I want you to give me, just admit what happened, that you stole, that you took the charamim. Vayan achan is Yeshua, and achan said, yes. Vayayim ha'amna, you're right. Anaychi chatasi v'chazais asisi v'gaymer. Uminayin, how do we know that it was a good vidu? Shekeep it like viduyo, shenever, like it says in the pasuk. Vayayim Yeshua, ma achartanu. Why have you ruined us? Yarkcha Hashem b'yayim. The Rebbeinu Shalom is going to ruin you dafka today, which he's going to get misa, and make a deal. B'yayim dafka today at the achor, v'yat the achor l'aylam abam. Ve'meni adelis fathers. Person doesn't remember all his chataim. Amar like Emar. You should say te misasi kapar l'kavanayis. Rabbi Yehuda ma'yadeshu mizumim. The guy knows he was framed. What should he do? Omer tehei misasi kapar l'kavanayis. Chutz me'oven zeh, except this avera. Because this avera is framed. A person, we're going to see why we don't want this to happen, but every person is going to start saying, you know what, I was framed, even though he wasn't, and we're going to see the issue with that later on in the Gemara. No, we see that Yeshua begged Achan to give a vidui. We know no is only for bakasha. So B'Shah, Shamar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yeshua, the Rebbeinu Shalom tells Yeshua, Chat Yisrael. So I'm lafon Rebbeinu Shalom, Michata, who did this chait? So Amalei, Vichidelter, am I telber? Am I going to snitch? You have to understand this a little deeper. Rather, Hapul Geirlis, go make yourself a girl. Halach V'Hapul Geirlis, V'Nafal Girl Alachan. So Yeshua comes to Achan. Amalei Yeshua, but girl at the Baalai. Amalei. The Achan tells Yeshua, come on, the girl at the Baalai, you're not making sense. If I make a girl, after Velazakayin, which are Shnei G'dayla Dartem, Im Anima Pelechem Girl, Alechem Kem Hu Naifel. The whole concept of a lottery is that someone's going to be the winner. That's how the brain plays. Says, I have the chance, right? So he's basically saying, you're going to tell me I did a Avera based on a girl? I can flip it around, make two G'dayla Dar, and one of them is automatically going to say it was him. So Amalei Yeshua tells back Achan Vakashim B'cham begging you al Taitzi Laz al Agaralois Shasi Eretz Yisrael Shetischalek Ba'aretz. We know Chalukas Eretz Yisrael is going to be in a girl with the Urim and Tumim, etc. We learned this in Baba Basra Kuf Chavez over there by Riches. Shenama Ach Begarol Yechalek Haaretz. So Tain Tay, they give a vidoy, Marvino Shechude Shachtim. He actually fooled him. He convinced him. He told him, just give a vidoy, and you'll get away with it. And then he found out he's going to get executed. You have to know how he did it. The Rishonim Masber, because it was so important, Chalukas Haaretz, that he was mamish able to trick him and lie to him. So Tain Leida, if you just mind it, everything's going to be fine. Miyad, immediately, V'yan Achnes Yeshua, V'yayim Amna Anoichi Chatasi L'Hashem Elokei Yisrael, V'chazais Asisi. Amar Rav Asi from the Lashon is, Amar Rav Chanina Melamed, Shemal Achan B'Shleisha Charamim. From 3 misappropriations. Why? Shnaim, it was made Moshe, V'echem Mei Yeshua. Shenamar Kazais is another one, V'chazais, which is the third Asisi. V'yechan Amashim Elazar Hashem Chamisha. Arba was the time of Mei Moshe, V'echad was Moshe now, B'mei Yeshua, and he got killed. Shenamar Noichi Chatasi V'chazais Asisi. What shot only now did Achan get killed? Why did he get punished now? They were hidden. Asha Avri Yisrael. This concept, because if you look inside the pasuk, it says Anistaros LaHashem Elokeinu. If you look inside the Torah, clearly the last Torah on Ches, it says Anistaros LaHashem Elokeinu. V'haniglois Lanu levanenu adaylam. If you look inside the pasuk, there's clearly dots on the Torah are adaylam. So lama nakod al lanu ulevanenu val ein shabad. Why do we have these dots? Melamed to tell us shalei ana shalei stars ashav Yisrael. See, I did different Yehuda. Rashi's marich. Exactly where do you see from the dots that it's a time that's from now? Sounds like only now and on adaylam. That's when the hidden sins, which is what we're talking about Achan, that's when you're going to get punished. Amalev nechem uchi ana shalei stars la'ilam. Vel lekvanemer adaylam. It says until forever. El kashem shalei ana shalei stars kachla ana shal anshim shabagali ad shavi Yisrael siyad. El achan. So if so, what's taka? Why did he get punished? Why? What's changing suddenly? So when Memdal Medalev El achan my tami anish, you know why? It already became a rabbim. Mishum dahavi yedei beishte uvanav. Once his wife and children know, it's already a rabbim. Everyone knew about it, and it's not considered stars. It says in the pasuk Chat Yisrael. Amir of Avda Bar Zavda. It's a famous song. Af b'shechata. Still, what is Klai Yisrael? Yisrael who? Amar Ab Abba Hanidami Inchi. Asa the Koi Beni Chilfi. Even if a myrtle between the willows. Asa Shmei. Asa Karli. Even if a person. Kaviyachal Klai Yisrael. Even when we're doing Chatoim, we still stand out. Vegam Avruis Brisi Ashet Tzivisi Isa. It's the same pasuk in Yeshua over there. Vegam Lachu. They took Menachem. Vegam Ganvu. Vegam Kichashun. They denied. Vegam Samu V'Chalem. They put it in the Kalim. Amar Lamashem Yehuda Bar Mestafer Melamed Sha'avar Achan Achamisha Chum Shetayra. Shenam, if you look inside the pasuk, it says Gam 5 times. Why do you have to say that to tell us this point? Chamisha Gam. Achan was Moishich Bar Lasahaya. We know he did Mila, but he tried hiding it. He was a big Rasha. Ksiv Hacha v'Gam Avru is Brisi, and we know Brisi means Mila. Ksiv Hasam is Brisi Hafa. Fraktamar Pshita. Achan was a Rasha. Why? What's the big deal? My answer is Ma'ad Tema v'Mitzvah Gufei Life Akar. He already did it. Why are you going and trying to hide your bris? Kamash Malon, Achan was such a Rasha, even tried to go back. In Rashi's Masber, that eventually by pulling the Arla, by being Moishich his Ar, eventually Taka was covered. V'chiasa nevala b'Yisrael, Omer of Abar Zavda Milamed Shebal Achan Nair Merasa. Ksiv Hacha v'chiasa nevala, Ksiv Hasa Giasa regarding Merasa, that she did in Nevala B'Yisrael. Rektamar Pshita, what's the big deal? We know he was a Russian. Maran says, Ma'ad Tema Kula Hailo Pakan of Shein. Rashi's Masber. Such a case of an Aymer Rasa. It's Ral Shamayim. It's Ral Labrius. You're embarrassing the family, and you're being iced on the Baila. Kamash Malon, he was such a Russian, he didn't care. Ravina Amano. It's just saying Dina Kanar Marasa Biskila. We're just learning out that he's Nistav, he was commanded to get killed. That was his punishment, but in himself, he wasn't Bail and Aymer Rasa. It says in the pasuk that Yikach Yeshua is Achan ben Zerach v'esa Kesef. He took the silver, v'esa Deres, the garments, v'lishlosh and Azav, the bars of gold. V'es Banav v'es Benaisa v'eshayr v'es Chamer v'es Sayin the sheep v'es Alav v'es Kala Shalai. So Zaktamar Imuchata. And then if you look inside the pasuk, it clearly says v'es Banav v'es Benaisa. That's what we're trying to pull out. You should underline that. Imuchata Banav v'Benaisa machatu. What did they do wrong? Amalei v'tamech Imuchata Kol Yisrael machatu. The chsev at the end of the pasuk Mammon says v'Kol Yisrael imay. To show us what's going to happen. Look, to subdue the Eilam and say, look what's happening to Achan. So too, we brought the family. And the reason why I brought the family, because they were involved a little more. It says in the pasuk, "Ve'yisrafu Aisam ba'esh, ve'yiskulu Aisam ba'avan." You burn him in the Osir stone. B'tarti. Why didn't he both? I'm Ravina. Right, this Reifa. Whatever the possessions, clothing, for example, kesef his own clothing, you can burn. But right, the skila, Rashi's masber, the animals, that got skila. Says in the pasuk, Ve'era b'shalol aderes shina achas toiva. And they saw in the spoils of what? Aderes shina, which means like a lovely garment. Achas toiva, it was good. Umasayim shkolin kesef, it was 200 silver shkolin. Rav Amar, you know what this lovely aderes shina means? It's talio de milsa, it's fine wool. And Rashi's masber that the second the animal was born, they covered it. You put like a nice covering like that. It was pristine. It was beautiful, fine. Shmuel Amar, sarvala de trifa. Sarvala de trifa. It was dyed with what? With alum, Rashi says. Alum, I think, is also an English word, which is a certain type of chemical. Says in the pasuk, "Vayitzikum lifnei Hashem," and Yeshua spread this lifnei their b'nei Shalom. Amar Menachem ba v'chavtem lifnei Hamakom. He kilu threw all achan stuff in front of the b'nei Shalom. Amar Fana B'nei Shalom. Al elu taharik for this, for what achan did. He took something. Rubishal Sanhedrin sheketiharik Rubishal Sanhedrin. Dichsev says in the pasuk, "Vayaku." Mehem anchei kishleishim v'shisha ish. 30 people got killed. V'tani shleishim v'shisha mamish Rabbi Yehuda. Amar lenechem v'chishleishim v'shisha hayu. V'aloi nemer ela kishleishim v'shisha. One thing if you say around 100 people. Around is a good number. What check is 36? Elazar ben Menashe sheshakol keneged ruba shel Sanhedrin. He's considered like Rabbi Sanhedrin of 71, 36 in majority. Amar Nachman Amar Rav Ma'idich said, what is the pasuk saying? Tanchunim yidaber rosh. V'asher yana azus. Regarding when it comes to Technunim, that's when a Rosh, Ani talks. V'asher, however, he answers with full of azus. Technunim daber rosh and Moshe. V'asher yana azus. We're playing with this as Yeshua. My time. What shall you saying that Yeshua was very tough? Elam mishum dechsev v'yatzukum lifnei Hashem. He spread it in front of the Rebbeinu Shalom. He started saying this. What's going on? Atu Pinchas levad achi. We find this ma'aseh mamash by Pinchas with the Magay for 24,000 people got killed, and we know with Pinchas. Right, Vayamid Pinchas comes by the Magefa, and he pulls up, and he does with the Maisa with Zimri, and it says Vayamid Pinchas Vayfollow Shin Tefillah. V'tatzah Magefa in the Magefa was stopped 24,000. Vayamid Belazer Vayspalo in Emer Eli Vayfollow Shin like more of the judgment. Men Lamed Shasif Lizim Kainai. He's saying they're litigating with their Rebbeinu Shalom. Who was he? Did the Maisa with Zimri? He put Zimri and the Isha. Because of this, we know that's from Aleph. Rather, we also find this by Pinchas. Rather, we see by Yeshua. Yeshua says, why do we move this entire nation in addition to listen? That's a Yarden. Moshe also spoke like this. Why is this a nation so evil? Yeshua says, if only we would have chosen not to cross over the Yarden, would have stayed where we were, would have been better off. The Rebbeinu Shalom tells Yeshua, Kum lach, go raise yourself. It's really your fault. Why? Because I said what? They're supposed to write in the Mamonets, the Torah on the stones. The atim, what did you do? Richaktim samach mil. You do the 60 mils away. This is Rav Shila. This is what Shila wanted to say. After Rav Shila says, Ukim Rav Amayir Alel, he puts a mer so to speak and give over his drasha. Medarish says Kashat Tziva Hashem es Moshe. They can't see Moshe Yeshua. V'chein Asi Yeshua. He said Davam Kol Kashat Tziva Hashem es Moshe. So what are you talking about? Yeshua Kilu didn't listen to the Rebbeinu Shalom. He put the Torah 60 mil away. Im Kain Matalaima Kumlach. He's saying, Amalei Atagarantalim. It was really your fault. I need to come. Amalei, bye. This is what he's saying. Rather, you shouldn't have this issue. What does it say in the pasuk? Atkan. Zok the Mar Viter, another Maisa Vehi Yisur Shubi Richa Yishus and Richa Vehisain. If he lifts his eyes, he sees a person standing over there. And what happened was, and he says, who are you? And he says, what do you mean I'm a malach? Can he sar tzva Hashem atabasi? So what did Yeshua do? Ve'ipol Yeshua upon of atzav ishtachavu. So for Ektimara, Hechi David Hachi, how could he bow at night? Because he said, Rashi's Masber says, Lu. Says in the pasuk then, Alonu atom l'tzarenu, you come in to stay overnight. Sounds like it was dafka. If it was a night, because if it was in the day, he would have realized if he was a sari sarl or if he was a sar of the goyim, sar goyim. Ve'yamalaki ani sar tzava Hashem asembasi, and he bowed down for Ektimar hechi avid achiv. Rabbi Yechanan also adam sheitim shalom chaver belayla chashin Hashem shedu. Maybe it's a shade. Shani Asim the Karmaleh, he says, Ani Sar Tzava Hashem Atabasi. V'dom Shakri, maybe he's lying. Very nice to say that he's not that he's coming from the Rebbeinu Shalom. Our answer is Gemiri. We know we have a tradition to Mafki Shem Shemayim Levatala. Shade is not Maitzi Shem Shemayim on the Mazik. Therefore, he was able to bow down. Talk to Gemara 1 Mem Dalad on the base. Amalei Emesh Bitaltem Tarmishul Belabayim. Be'etzem you yesterday. Be'etzem you invatal the tummy. However, v'achshem, and now b'taltim Talmud and that's where I'm coming. Alezim b'basi, yes, and which are you coming from? Talmud Torah, the carbon. Amalei ata. Now for the Talmud Torah, basi miyad. What does it say in the pasuk? Miyad v'yilon v'yolen Yeshua b'laylahu b'teicha emek. Rabbi Yehuda melamed shalom be'umka shalalacha. Immediately started learning. How do we know that? Now the Malach came. Atabasi. Which pasuk? What are you going to do with this pasuk? What's the pasuk? Says in the pasuk as follows: Al teitze l'riv meher. Don't get yourself in the fight very quickly. What's going to happen after, for example, you walk into Shul, you start screaming at a guy. After you embarrass him, he says XYZ. It wasn't if a guy says, "Why do you block my car?" And then the guy answers, "I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't even drive." Right? And then you get all embarrassed. That what? Rivcha rivis recha. You want to fight your friend? Before you fight, before you make sure we know what you're doing, find out everything. B'shal sham l'kadosh baruch hu lechasko lech amar lem l'Yisrael avicha emayr ve'imcha was a chitis amra ruach piskainis. You have to understand this was when Malach Gabriel was talking for Kadosh Baruch Hu. If you avoid Avram Esarvi Yamdu Fenech, you're going to talk like this. Ato imelem machlem aisim. You're going to embarrass them. Rivchas rivrecha v'sayd achal tigal. Corrected more right away. Wow, how could Gabriel talk like this to the Rebbeinu Shalom? I had to talk like that. The Gemara says, three names Gabriel has: Piskain, Itmain, and Sigrin. Piskain, what's the lashon psak? The cut, shepaisik dvarim. Klap him out. That's who he was able to talk. Itmain, she'aitem of an essential Yisrael. He was shut down the layers of Klai Yisrael. Sigrin, kivin shesayga shuva and peiches. If Gabriel can't stop us, forget about it. We're in trouble. It says in the pasuk, Ayarach. Shu'acha loy vitzar. The Hainu, this is talking as a pasuk in Eve. He's basically saying his friends were telling Eve, did you daven before this tragedy happens? Look at you now, but did you daven before it happened? Amar lazal aylam yaktiv adam tfilatzar. Shalmal lahikam avram tfilatzar ben beis el ben I loy nishtar misanen Yisrael. Nothing would have been left. Shari the poet. Vishlaka shamar kol ma'amitz atzma tefila. Anyone who strengthens himself with tefila melamata. He has no enemies up there. And let's turn the malam. He has no enemies on top. In Shemai. How do we know that Achon had a good vidu after he did the vid and he died? The dafka today you got ruined the Yemazet Achon. We had the Achon. And it says in the pasuk, Uvnei Zerach Zimri. Zimri's Achon. We're going to see in a moment. Ve'eson ve'heimon. V'chalkol, v'dara, kulam chamisha. It says kulam chamisha. My kulam chamisha. Why did they say five? That what? Kulam chamisha, they're all like what? All together. Hein lo'elam haba. Chsiv Zimri, v'chsiv Achon. So what is his name? Rav Shmuel Chad Amar Betzim his name is Achon Shemai. V'laman akushim Zimri, she'asa ma'is Zimri. V'chad Amar Zimri Shemai, v'laman akushim Achon, she'ichen of an essential Yisrael. That what? He's like a snake. Achon is a snake that he went around us and put all our averos on us. What should he do? He should say, if he doesn't remember what's chataim, he should say it should be k'mchap and everything. That what? If a person got framed, he should say, accept this avera. And then we said, everyone's going to do it. So let everybody do it. The guy's dying either way. So what? Let them make believe that it wasn't them. They either way dying. More answers. But imagine every time in Bezdin we see such a maisa, it's a big loss. Okay. A person was on the way to get executed. He says, if this is talking about oven, I don't want a kapara. For any of my verse. However, I'm telling you, I'm fraying. However, I'm just letting you know, you Bezdin, you guys are fine. However, I'll never be meichel for framing me. They got very scared. They said, what do you want? The Torah says we must kill him. He has to get killed. It's on who? The responsibility boils down the Eidim. Frektamar, Pshita, Kol Kamine. What do you mean? This is what the Torah tells us. The Gemara answers, like Tzricha, the Kahadu Busahadi. Avada, this guy's going to want to get away with something. The Gemara says, no, even the Eidim are minded that what? That they lied. We know Kivin the Torah says we don't believe him. You have to remember, a person starts getting cold feet when the guy's about to get executed. My answer is like Tzricha. The Afagav, the Kayav Tan Lamasayu, even when he's given a reasoning. What's the case of Bay Michsa? Rashi goes, it's a very long Rashi, takes over the whole Amud. But Rashi, let's go quickly through it with this case. This person was a tax collector, and he was a big Rasha, and he died the same day Gadol Dar died, and they make a beautiful Levaya. During the Levaya came listing, everyone went running. Besides the Gadol Dar, there was a Talmud hiding, and they went to flip the mitas, and it was very embarrassing. The Rasha got a beautiful Levaya. Gadol Dar got a terrible Levaya. His Talmud was distraught. He fell asleep that night. He has a dream. This Talmud Chacham comes over to him and says, look at me in Olam Abba. I'm doing great. You know why? So he says, what shot this Levaya happened? He says, I was one time, people in Vazat Tamid Chama never answered. So why did he get this Russia, this tax collector got himself a beautiful Levaya? The answer was, because one time, Itaka set up a whole beautiful banquet for the Sar to come. He never had them showing up. He canceled. He gave the food to the Aniyim. That's why he got a beautiful Levaya. But you go look at him right now. You know where he is? He's burning in Gehenna. He says, wow, okay, I see what's going on. He says, well, for how long is he going to stay there? He says, you know, until when? Until Shimon ben Shetach, right? It says, Achiyamas ben Shimon ben Shetach, and he's going to come and replace him. He says, wow, why should Shimon ben Shetach get such a punishment? He says, because it's a terrible time of Kishuv, and there are 80 ladies as we speak doing multiple types of Kishufim. And they're in Ashkelon, he says, and he's not doing anything about it. The Talmud wakes up in the morning, goes running to Shimon ben Shetach, he tells him what's going on. Shimon ben Shetach says, I have a beautiful patent. Now, Kishuf, the second you're off the ground, you have no control. He says it was a rainy day. He quickly brought 80 Talmidei Chachamim. They put in a pot these beautiful dry coats. He pulls up to this little castle. He walks right in. They're about to do Kishuf, and he says, I'm also a Makashif. What's going on? I'll prove it to you, down in Makashif. You see outside, it's pouring rain. I could go outside in a second, come back with 80 people wearing dry coats for Kachava. They come in. They got very shocked. The second they were shocked, each one picked the lady up. Once the lady's off the ground, there's no kishuf. Takes them outside. They did skila, and then they hung them. Ad kana maisa. And what happened was not ad kana maisa. And then it continues. One of the kravim of this mechashu were very upset at Shimon ben Shetach. They made up a bubba maisa about the son of Shimon ben Shetach. The son of Shimon ben Shetach was Taka, about to get executed, on the way to get executed. This type of maisa said, I'm not meichel Eidim. And the Eidim said, you know what? Yes, we're really relatives of these ladies, and that's why Bezdin Taka believed the story. So that's why we're trying to compare this over here to this type of thing. The reason why we want to go through this Maaseh is we're going to see on Memvav, we're going to discuss Shimon ben Shetach Barichas. No, so it's interesting. Rashi says V'av became loy nifta. I was also wondering, but if you look inside, also throughout a lot of Rishonim, the all masber that Itaka nothing prevented him, and Itaka died. Because how do you understand, if you think about it, we brought this in the Daf Yomi, how do you understand loy niftar? It clearly sounds from the Gemara, the Maaseh is, our Maaseh from the Gemara, that you taka niftar. So taka, it's not so simple if you read it. Loy niftar, but we're learning avad that we taka did die. Couldn't prevent it. Zok the Heilige Gemara, Mishnah. Haya rachoik mi beis haskila. Arba amas. So he's away, 4 amas away from he's taka 4 amas. What do we do? Mafshitin oisa is begada, we remove his clothing. And the reason we understand that we remove his clothing like that, he could have a quicker death. Ish, mechas and oisim lefanav, we block his erva. Va'isha, we put a little cloth. Va'isha milafaneh umechara. Our back is also considered erva, different beauty. V'chamayim, no. Ish niskal aram, ein isha niskal seruma. Chacham have a problem of a lady getting hung, not sneers. Talk to Mara, mem hamad alf, turn abanan. Ish mechasan oisa perik echot. So the Rashi brings either means we just cover him a little, or means a little cloth. Milafanav isha shnei prakim milafanav milachara. Why? Nei shekula erva different beauty. Chamayim ish niskal aram, ve'ein isha niskelas ruma. So Zoktamar, my tamayu the Rabbanan. What Rabbanan says, you don't do this to Isha. Amakrav ragmu. I say you stone him. We know regarding Misa, there's no shaila. She's also going to get killed. To tell us, like Susai, where he's not going to have clothing. Dafka Isai his body. However, regarding her, Biksusa. Rabbi Yehuda argues with the Aimer. Isai be like Susa, Leishna Ish, Leishna Isha. Like we all know, Hisha cause of Isha, Isha, and Chol Mitzvah Shabbatayra, and therefore you don't have an extra meat. Zok the Gemara right away. Remember the Rabbana Chaysh Leru. What's your problem? That we're worried that this lady's dying and she's hanging on a tree and people are going to have here. Rabbi Yehuda Chaysh Leru. Vayiv Chasheminulu. We find this by what? By the site the Mamish Punkvaker. The Tanan. The kohen, he holds on to right when he's giving her the water. If it rips, and nifru, even a bunch of tatters, doesn't make a difference. Sleep until you see her chest. He unbraids her hair. No. If she was a beautiful woman, if it may sign her, because of what? Because of hair. So here we see Rabbi Yehuda does care about hair. So why, by the case of skila, we say we do hang her? You know what's the problem by Saita? By Saita, she's not for sure going to get killed. The Kahanim, the young Kahanim, are going to have a type for her, and they're going to end up going after her. And now our Mishnah, she's dead, she's dying. That's what the whole point is, to execute it. Maybe you can have a type for Nashim. Dafka over here, she's going to have a type. That's why there's a problem. By a Saita, she comes out, taka innocent. You have to remember, she's not so innocent. She taka did preaches. Rashi's mazma, that's when we're vayisher b'chlal. Rabbi Yehuda, the kasha. Rabbanan like kasha. Okay, so he answered the steers to Rabbi Yehuda about here. What happened to Rabbanan? Hello, Rabbi Yehuda like kasha, kedeshana, like we're mechalik, that the problem here is dafka by the site. Rabbanan, lami like kasha. Why? Because Amikra says in the pasuk, v'nivasru chol hanoshim v'loy sazenu ke. Which means to say is you reprimand all the women, so it's not a problem. You should not make her like lewdness. We're trying to bring out Mashenkin over there. Yes, we wanted to learn out from the Saita. She did a terrible affair. Let's not fool ourselves. She was miyachid after the husband told her not to do yichud. So Adirabba, let us, it's busha, but let us learn from it. So, what's the problem? A machine over here. Here she's already getting executed. Let her also get busha. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Amakra, v'havta l'recha kamaycha. Bar lai misa yaf, l'maisa she's getting killed. So Zaknamar Lema Rav Nachman, that's him as Tanai. It's machlekes Tanai. Mara says no. Like the Kulam Isla Rav Nachman. Everyone agrees to Rav Nachman. So what's the machlekes? If she should wear clothing when she's getting executed or not? V'hachabal kamifli Mar Savar. That what bizyayni the inish adifalei tvei minicha de gufe Mar Savar nicha de gufe adifim bizyayni. There's a shayla. It's very simple. A person, the guy's he's dying in 5 minutes. You're not here, but do you rather prolong your death by a few minutes? Less bizayin while you're dying, or what? If a person says, I'm either way dying, I don't care about bizayin. I want it to be 1, 2, 3, nice and quick. Zok the Heilige Mishnah, basis skila was how high? A gavaya, shtei kaimus was 6 hamas high. And echem and eidim deichva masnav, you throw him on his hips. Nep ech alibai, hoifech hamaisna. If he fell face, you would flip him around. Vim mace, but if he dies from the fall, yatzav him lav. The second aid goes, a shady neitel evan. So first aid pushed him, the second one what? Takes a big stone. Nice now liba and throws on his heart, and you hope he dies. And mace by yatzav him lav. Rigim masbich Yisrael, whoever was there would start stoning him until he would die. Shenama yad eidim tia baver Scheiner la misai v'yad kalam was bachrein. Tana v'kayma shalai, he was standing. So if you count his height, which is berach another 6 amas, another 3 amas harei kan shalosh, and therefore it's really 3 stories high. For tomorrow, me being a kula high, you need such a high in order to kill somebody. Or minihi, we know this in Baba Kamrinu ma barshu kadei lamis asar tvachim avkol kadei lamis asar tvachim, and we're comparing a behemoth to Adam, that Adam would also die with 10 tvachim. Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rav Amakra v'havta l'recha kamaycha bar lai misa yaf. If you put a person in a bar that's only 10 tvachim, yes, he's going to die. It's a very high chance. But we know with Gimel Kaimas, the chance of dying is it's more than that, it's very high. So put him very high, like that'll be 1, 2, 3. Mara answers, Meshum, the ninvul, his body's going to splatter. We brought in the Daf Yomi, that's another issue. The higher you go, the more tsar while he's flying in the earth, the pain of knowing that he's dying. That's what we were wondering. Okay. Echad min ha'edim doichvay. One of the edim, they push him. Tanavani minayin shemet chiyah. How do we know that we do it? Chiyah tamalayma, says in the pasuk. Yara means to hurl. Minayin shemet skila. How do you know you do skila? Tamalayma. Also says in the pasuk, a yara yira, and it says sakli sakl. Tamalayma sakl. Minayin shemet skila ubetchiyah. How do you know both? Tamalayma sakli sakl. Ay yara yira to tell us both. Minayin shemet betchiyah yatsa. How do you know even if you pushed him and he dies? Tamalayma ay. Learn out from the ay yara yira. Minayin, this is talking about Har Sinai, if you know the part, right? The pasuk is clearly talking about Har Sinai. Minayin, Sha'af, L'dayers, Cain. How do you know this is even the future? Not just Har Sinai. Tamalaymer, when Mehem Abeis, Sakol, Ye, Sakol. The Lashon Asad to tell us even for the future. Vim Lav, Ada, Sheni, Noitel, Seven. Naitel, is it really true? Do you really understand that this second agent just goes and picks up the rock? Evan was so heavy, and it was Master Shnei Bnei Adam, Naitel and Naliba. The two people had to pick it up. And Meis B'Yatzav, the Tamech Tik Shalachi Gufa, Master Shnei Bnei Adam, but the Lashon is night love and nice no, which is a Lashon Yachid. Aliboy, Elamai, Ela Demedal Badadi, Chavre Veshadili Ihu, Kehechi Detesibir Zaya, which means to say, you're right, the stone is very heavy, so you need two people to pick it up. However, imagine you had two people, you would have to go 1, 2, 3, throw. It's much easier now that it's ready in the ear to pick up one guy and throw it. It comes down in a much stronger kayach, and therefore, like again, we want it to die in a very quick pace. The whole Klai Yisrael stones and v'chuli. It never happened in throughout history that such a thing happened. Moran says, Mika Amina David? I never said it. The pasuk never says you must do it. The pasuk says it. For whatever reason, it ends up coming. Such a thing that he doesn't die after this whole procedure. Klai Yisrael goes and throws the stones, whoever's surrounding them, by the best. This stone that they threw, we're going to see you bury it. And it sounds like there was always a stone meant for execution. Whether the beam that we got, that you hang him on it, so what's it mean that there was an Evan over there? There was an Evan, but once you used it, you'd bury it and replace it with another one. We have a Bryce that says you don't get buried. I'm Papa, my ima, I don't mean mamish in the cave, ima b'tusasa, which is the Dalaramis. That itself is considered what we're saying a burial. Amar Shmuel, what happens? Reuven, Hashem, and Eidim, and then Lamaisa, by the time it comes to execution, one of the Eidim lost his hand, so you can't push him off. Nikta Yad Eidim Pata. My time at the Beinon, Shmuel's learning the pasuk literally. Yad Eidim Tia by Bari Scheiner Veleka. Lamaisa, he doesn't have a hand. Elamata Eidim Gidman, people that don't have hands, they were missing hands, they were born like that. The Mikar Chanam the Psi, they can tell the pasuk. No. Shani Hasan the Amikra Yad Eidim Shaisa Kvar. That tells us that if he had a hand, Mashiach, if he never had a hand, more than that, the way we look at the stump is a hand. That's how you look at a person who never had a hand. In fact, the Mara Meisve and Shmuel, Kol Makom She'idu Shnayim. What happens if we're in Muncie and two of them come and say, what happens? Kach v'kach happened in Lakewood. Bezdin decided to execute him and he ran over here. So you clearly see it's not the same Eidim. Moran says no. This is the same Eidim that we said we were in Lakewood. It is a little Shveta Lashon. It sounds like that they're coming to say about other Eidim. Me being a Kra, do you really need the Psukim Mamish Lily? Vatanya Mais Yumas, Hamakaret Seach, to tell us who ain't Lele Misa Ksuva Boy, Minain Shemita Yochala Misa, Misa Ksuva Boy, Shata Misa, Bachamisa Shada Yochala Misa. Guy's running away. The only way to kill him is to shoot a gun. That's when we deserve Saif. How do we know we do this? Tamalaymar. He says in the pasuk, "Mois Yumas Hamaka," to tell us we call Makkah. Right? Says no. Shani Asim. There we have the pasuk. Damakra. Double lashon Mois Yumas. Veligmer minei that you don't need the pasuk literally. Maran says there mishum the haver ritzech v'goel adam shnei ksuvim abayin ke'echad v'chol shnei ksuvim abayin ke'echad to tell us emelam ritzech like we just learned Mois Yumas hadamer. And so what's the case of goel adam? Goel adam ayid tanya goel adam. Yamis says in the pasuk Yamis ritzech mitzvah goel adam. Minayin shem ein loy goel shebebezdem and midin loy goel. How do we know the bezdem puts it on? Shenam like it says in the pasuk befegoy voy. Mikam Makam anybody. Is this really true? You don't need a pasuk literally. We know this by the Ben Surimer. If the parents were what? One of the parents were Gidem if he's missing a hand, or he's mute, or if he's lame, or if he's blind, or if he can't hear. Like it says in the pasuk. If you go through the case, that means they have to be able to grab him. They can't grab him if he doesn't have a hand. And they what? In the pasuk clearly says right? To tell us he can't be lame. And it says also in the pasuk to tell us he can't be moved. And they say benenenu, that means they have to see him. He doesn't listen to us. That means they can't be deaf. Mar answers my time to be in a krag d'chsef. Isn't it because you see you do have to go like what? Like Shmuel, that the pasuk has to be literally. My answer is no. Like Shani Asim, the Kula Krag Yiseiru. The whole pasuk is extra to tell us these drashos that the parents need to be again not lame, not mute, not deaf, etc., etc. Tashma, let's try to bring a raya. Ein la rachav. We all know by the air nidachas we burn everything in the town square. Ein la rachav. If there's no town square, ein Minas is here in the Dachas de Rishma. Kiva argues because it says no. Aimer ein la rachav, eisen la rachav. Ad kan like ein la rachav, eisen la rachav. So what do you see clear? Ad kan like pliga the Marsav rachav the Mikar Bin and the Marsav rachav the Hashna Nami can the Mikar Dami. Everyone agrees that what you need to make a rachav. Aval the Kulam Bin a krokah said that you what? That you have to do a rachav. You have to make a town square. My answer is Tanoi, the Tanan, regarding a Mitzayir, it says, Ein lahen, ein loy. If this Mitzayir doesn't have a Bayin Yah, which is a thumb, Bayin Regel, which is a big toe, and Eisen Yamanis in the right ear, Ein loy tire lamas, because the Pasuk says you have to put it, he puts his finger on it. Rabbi Lezer argues, I'm a nice on Makam Yaitse. Rabbi Shimon, I'm a nice on Smile of Yaitse. It's a Shiloh, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Lezer. What's more crucial is it the Malkum, even if there's no ear, maybe you just put it a different ear. But the point is, we see clearly it's Machlokes, Tanakam, and the other Shittas. What do you do in such a case of Mitzayir? Does he have to hire or not? Okay, very good shmak, where and Memhem and base towards the bottom of the Mishnah over there, calling Niskolin, Nitlin. Anybody at Skila, Divri Rebelezer. V'chachayim Maimrim, Eina Nitle Ella Megadef, Oivid of the Zar. Racham want to say the only people that get killed are the people that what? Are Kaifer, which is a Makal and Oivid of the Zar. Ha'ish, Toilet Isaac, Pon of Klape Am, the whole nation sees him. Va'isha Panea Klape 8. They put her face towards the beam. You don't bechlal hanger. We just went through this whole ma'aseh in Rashi. We know he just hung 80 ladies after he stoned them. There's no riot. He hung 80 ladies, and we know. He couldn't even kill more than once. From you cannot bring a riot. We're going to learn tzarich shah, etc. Tana Rabbanan says in the pasuk v'humas v'talisa. Says in the pasuk that what you clearly should you kill him and then you hang him. Yachol. You would think maybe everybody that gets killed call and mustn't nitlan tamalaymar because it says in the pasuk ki killas eleikim talui ma mekal. We're learning from killas ma mekal zeh shebaskila so to afkol shebaskila divrei lezer. Chamayim no ma mekal zeh shekav beker so to anybody afkol shekav beker. So what's the mechlekes Rabbanan and Rebbe Lezer? Ma'ikam Rabbanan were darshi klali prati. Rebbe Lezer darshi ribui muti. Rabbanan darshi klali prati. So be'etzem, whenever you have klali prat, you have to dan el ka'ena prat. However, over here it's a little different. It says v'humas v'talis is a klal. Comes the kikilas is a prat. So if you would stop right here, you would say dafka the makal, nothing more. Ki av mekarvela dadi aminin ein b'chlal el mashav prat. So hani dafka the makal, hani in midiachrina line. However, hash does the one that involves an aleph at the top of the omit. Hash to the mechaki madadi. Now that if you look inside the pasuk, it's separated the two to tell us to what? L'ribuye. What do you be? Merabbe, avodas kechavim, the dami lebechal mili, the both kofi beker. For Rabbi Lezer, darish ribuye umeute. V'humas v'talis is a ribuye. Ki killas is a miyat. So, if you have a riven at miyat, you have a mekarvela dadi, loiver mavinan, ela avodas kechavim, the dami le. With the riba miyat, they'll say, okay, anybody that's kofi beker. Now, bechal mili, hash to the mechaki madadi. You know what the riba miyat that's separated? You tell us everything that's similar to the riboy. Ahani the riboy Scheiner skolin, which is anybody that has a misa skila. Ha'ish toilet. My time of the abon the isha we don't hanger. Amakra, it says in the pasuk, v'chiyah be'ish chet b'chule, v'humas v'talisa aisai. To tell us aisai v'laisai. Rabbi Lezer would tell us aisai, but like susai. Without clothing like we learned earlier. Rabbanan will tell you, enechanami, you're right. Allah, we have no choice but to come from different pasuk. Some more questions. What's Rabbanan going to say? Allah Makra says in the pasuk, in the beginning of the pasuk, v'chiyah be'ish chet. Dafka ish v'laisha. Rabbi Lezer, hi v'chiyah be'ish my darsh by Amar Shlaka Shehula Mu'utit to tell us a Ben Sarimar. Ain't a Ben Sarimar, but it's ish. But klab the Torah, we don't look at a Ben Sarimar. We look at him as a kid. We don't look at him as a ish. V'atanya Ben Sarimar nisko v'nitla div Rabbi Lezer. But he does get hung. Elam Rav Nachman Yitzchak le Rabbi Ben Sarimar to punkfakar to tell us the enechanami, even though he's a katan, we're still going to kill him. My time, ish v'loy ben. So why do you have chet? Be'etzem chet to tell us the dafka misha chatenera. Yatzim ben sarimar. Yatzim ben sarimar is one of the fascinating things that we kill him for no chet, for the future. Shal shum seifen erik. So it's avimiyat achamiyat ve'imiyat achamiyat ella le rabbis. Amar Rabbi Lezer v'loy b'shimon shadach tola nashim b'chuli. Amar Chizal leishanu ella b'shtei misas. For example, skila and sreifa. Now the whole concept, just to get a little context, the reason why we're so worried is the Bezdin needs to be 100% focused on doing the right thing. So the second there's a bunch of misas, we're worried that Bezdin is going to lose their clarity, their focus, and end up making a mistake. Amr Chizda Lechana Shtei Misas. Have a Misa Achas done it. Frek the Mova Maisa the Shimon Shetach. The Misa Achas have it. They're all getting skila. The Carmela Day none. We can't learn enough from him. Eliyit Mahachiet. Ma Loi Shana Lebi Misa Achas Kain Shtei Misas. The Chidami Kigoin Shtei Averis. And Rashi's Masba Shimon Shetach. They were doing different kishufim. The Torah is mechalkit. So once the Torah is mechalkit, it's different averis. Again, Bezin is going to have to go through every avera very amkus. And once there's two averas going on, we don't do that. So Shimon Shetach was a tzarich shah haisa. Ava misa achas v'aver achas done. Mesa b'ada b'rava in done shnai b'yom echad v'afilu v'noyef and efes. And over there l'chayra, it's the exact same misa, exact same everything. My answer is Tivgam Rav Chizda, but Bas Kayin Abayla. We all know Bas Kayin. She gets sreifa. Ish totally if it's a Ashes ish or a Nair Marasa, whether it's skila or chenek. Oy Bas Kayin v'zayim ezameh, which means 3 pairs of edim. Which is the first pair says Abbas Kain Ditznus. So she's going to get Sreifa. Comes the second pair of Eidim, says the first Eidim are liars, therefore they're going to get either Skila or Chen. Pardon? They're going to get the first pair of Eidim. Either they're going to get Skila or they're going to get Chenek. Tal if it's Ashes Ish or Naim Rasa. Comes a third pair of Eidim and says what? That the second pair of Eidim are lying. So the second pair of Eidim are going to get what the first pair would have got. What would the first pair would have got? Either Chenek or Skila. But what's the Isha? Now that the first pair of Eidim are Taka saying the MS, the first pair is going to punish her what? Sreifa. So she gets Sreifa, and the second pair is going to get Skila or Chenek. Even though the B'etzem the Torah doesn't say so, to make it like a fence, to make sure we're protected. We find the Sharach. Now, riding a horse is only the Rabbanan. It's not a the Reis of B'Mei Vana. Another ma'aser, other mechus yetichas ishtay, tachas atayna, they did tashmish berabim, and there's nowhere in the Torah that says you can't do tashmish berabim. They reveal the best of Vilkun, they give Malchus light nation roy lekach, el shashad tzrika lekach. It was terrible what was going on. A lot of preachers was going on in the Veld. Zok the Heilige Mishnah, how do we hang him? Kate said toilet I say, mishakin is a koibaritz. We take a beam, we stick it into the ground. It has to be quite thick to hold his body. Right, we put it vertically in. For 8 sites, and we have a piece of wood that's protruding. We take his hands, we tie him, and we put him on top of this beam, and he hangs there. We're going to see for a very short time. Rabbi Yaisi argues. We're going to see why it's coming from Psukim. Rabbi Yaisi Aimer, Hakayr Mutal Kaisel was against the wall. We didn't put it anywhere into the ground. With a rope. Immediately we would release him. However, if we keep a body overnight, if you look inside the pasuk, it says Laisalin if lasel eitz ki cover tikran ki killas alakim tali v'chulik klaimar b'nei mazetoli. You know why he's hanging with name Shabir Chas Hashem because Lamaisi was Mavazim was Kal Hashem v'nimtza Shem Shamayim Mischalo. We're going to learn a little more that the Rebbeinu Shalom's in pain when he sees it Tzelem Alakim hanging. You know what the Shechina says? Kalani miraishi kalani mizrai, which means I'm burdened with on my head, burdened on my arm. Think about it. Even stomach carve, you leave it overnight over Lois. I say. However, if it's for his own covet, for example, immediately. They wouldn't put him in as a regular caver. Bezin had 2 cemeteries. Then after a while, when it turned into bones, the worms ate it up. And then they would put it in its original caver. They would say, we're still friends. We know you did what the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted us to do. Emes dantem. Is the final amud. What can you do when it comes to grief? That's none of your control. So the Gemara talking about it. You first hang him and then you stone him. That's what they would do. First kill him. When do we, when we killed it? We would wait mamish till a few minutes before shkia. The second we say you deserve to get executed, we bring him there, we do the whole ma'aser very quickly. Which means to say is, we're just being yaitzik event. Mamish the taich of yaitzik event. We do it mamish for a second. One guy ties it, one guy loosens it, done. That's why it's fascinating. Even though it's mamish for seconds, we're still busy which direction he faces. If you think about it. Okay. Tana Abanan. 8 says in the pasuk. 8. Shamani bein metosh bein mechover. Makes no difference if it's a regular tree. You have to bury it. Imagine you put him on a big tree, you would have to uproot the tree, call a truck, etc. The reason why he says it has to be just against a wall, you can't even put it into the ground, because by putting it into the ground, it has to be quite deep to hold the body. That's a problem. Rabban is going to say just pulling out of the ground. Tlisha lav klomi. Imagine you have two twins. One's the king. One became a robber. The Melech says, you got to get, he hangs him. Look, the Melech's hanging him. Same thing with the Yid. Where the Yid's hanging, what do we see? We see a Tzelem and the Kim, we're all together, just like the king's twin. Where is he coming from? It says in the Pasuk, where Meir says that the Rebbeinu Shalom is saying that he's very bitzar. Kalani Mereishi Kalani. So what's it mean, Kalani? My mashma. So Abai and Rav are going to have a machlokes. They're not really arguing what Rebbeinu Shalom means, which means he's heavy. Amar Abai, command Amar Kal, which is light, less, which I'm not. Amarle. Basically, I'm heavy. Rava, Amarle Rava, can't you just say covet? If you're going to tell me Kal less, I'll lie. Covet on the Reishi. Covet on the Reishi Mivoyle. Ela Amar Rava, command Amar kill li. A lot of times when you want to see heavy, you use a lashon, I am light. Kill li. Alma. Fraktumara. Hi, mivoyle lugufa. You need it for pachatzav. Okay, name a kramekalo. My kilas. Why change the lashon kilas? The ema kula lahachudasa. Maybe that's Takaway coming to tell us. MK, name a krok kalas. My kalash, shma mina, to tell us what? To tell us both tarti. How do you know if a person, he lives over bodies over Lysa, Tamalayma, ki cover, tikverenu, right? The beginning of the pasuk says, Lysolin. Mikal, the Molin is Mesa, Shoivu, Lysa. Ikadami, Riechnam, Shumashim, Nechai, Remes, Likvur, Benataymi, 9, Tamalayma, ki cover, tikverenu. Mikan, from here we see, Remes, Likvur, Benatayra. Okay, now we're going to see a fascinating incident with the Shavar Malka. Amalei Shavar Malka, Rav Chama, Kvur, Benataymi, 9. So Ishtik, V'lai didn't answer him. Ravach was very upset. Look where the world is. You know, we gave the world to. We gave it to Tippish. To who? To Rav Chama for not answering it. You should have told Shur Malko. What do you mean? We're just going through our Mishnah. He covered the Quran. You see, you bury him. My answer is no. You know he didn't answer? I'll tell you. Dilavila Oren. You put him in a box. That's what he means burying him. It says take berenu. It's a Shavar Malka. It's not a Yid. He wasn't going to accept it. That's why he didn't say that. We know the Avos got buried. It's only just a minute. The cover of Kadosh Baruch Hu Moshe Rabbeinu, the Rebbeinu Shalom buried him. Also the Leishtanim Minaga. Tashma v'saftu lai kol Yisrael the cover. I said this is by Avia. Avia was getting basically his whole family was getting Hiravim. His whole family was going to get killed. But Avia, the pasuk says that he's going to have a good misa. He's going to die, but he's going to have a good hesped, and he's going to get buried. Also the Leishtanim Minaga. Okay, and then it says, Lo Yisavtu v'lo Yikayvru, this is the town of Anasois, they're all Rishayim. It says they're not going to have a spade, v'lo Yikayvru. The diamond up Pnei Adama, the mamash is going to be like Tzaya, they're going to lay on the ground, all the birds are going to eat them. Up Pnei Adama you, also the Leishtanim Minaga, it's not a ride with the Shavar Malka. Ibarilu, Kvur Mishum Bizyainu, is it because it's a bizarre for the person? Mishum Kaparu, what's the nafkamina? My nafkamine. I don't want to get Lahu Gavri, he's talking about himself, third person. I don't want this person to get buried. Like it's your family is going to get embarrassed. Kapara, who being a kapara, I don't want a kapara. So what is the halacha? My tashma, we know that the Avos got buried. Did the Avos need a kapara? Tzadik le kapara tzrichi. Marian says yes. And tashma, let's bring a raya from Avia. V'saftu loy koyisov v'cover oisai. The rest of his family, Ravam, the Mishpachas Ravam, should have also got buried. My answer is, the tzaddik would have a kapara. Avia was enough of a tzaddik that he could deserve the kapara. Hanach, however, the regular Mishpachas Ravam, there was such a shoyim, let have a kapara. Tashma, it says in the pasuk, Lo Yisavtu v'lo Yikaveru. This is regarding the town of Anasus. My answer is delight to have a kapara. Also, there were such Rishayim that they did not deserve a kapara. Ibarilu is paid the Yikar the Chai have or Yikar the Shachvi. Who is the covered for when you give a spade them? Is it for the mace or for the family? The guy says, I don't want to spade them when I die. See, if it's about him, the Yarsh, he can force the Yarshim to pay it to give a spade them. If it's for them, they can say, we don't want to spend money on a spade them. Tashma, we know Vayava Avram came running from the Har Moriah. Lispa l'sarv l'fkaisa. Frek Tamar. Yeah, Mishum Yikar Dechayu. Does that make sense? Just because of Avram Avinu, Mishum Yikar Avram, Sarah should sit there and wait. Mashul l'sar. My answer is yeah. Sarah herself would have been happy for Avram to get covered. Sarah Gufa Nichalei Kehechet Im Yaakov Avram. Tashma v'savduloi back to the case of Aviyah. V'savduloi koyisov v'cover Isaav. Yeah, Mishum Yikar Dechayu. Hanach b'nei Yikar Ninu. Is this mishpacha the Rasha in his family? That's why you should give him a spade. My answer is yes. Avaya wanted nichel tzadikaya the mikayir by inchi. At least his family should get some nachas from him. Tashma. Learn it from the town of Ananas. It says in the pasuk, "La yisavtiv la yikavru." My answer is la nichel tzadikaya the mikayir Rasha. That his family, the family didn't even want to hear anything regarding anything to do with the town of Ananas. Tashma. This is a pasuk of Tashma. This is a pasuk in Yirmiyah. Tashma, sorry, says in the pasuk, B'Shalom Thomas. This is Yirmiyah telling Tzidkiyahu. He says you're going to die. The way they killed the kings, they killed all the possessions, more of a covet. Whatever the king had, they burnt it as a covet. Are we showing it? They're going to call you a master when you die, when they give you a spade. So what type of nichum is this? He doesn't even care. You know, my answer is, this is what they're saying. Your memory is going to be an honor for Klal Yisrael. Just like the earlier kings was a covered for them. Next week, we're going to pick up from the top of Mem Zayin Amud Aleph.